Live streaming. 3, 2, 1, action.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joined us in person and watching on live stream. I would like to call the June 15th meeting of the Croton Harmon Board of Education to order and recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right. And get a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. All right. Well, before we get into our work session this evening, and we're really excited to have our architects here to present to us. I did want to take a couple of quick moments because we do have a couple of people who are joining us for our last regular board meeting of their last regular board meeting with us. So I'll start with Molly. Molly, thank you so much for your service on the board this year. You not only made sure that we knew what was going on at the high school, but you were also an active participant in our discussions, ensuring that we heard a student perspective and that helped us guide our decision making. You've been a fantastic liaison, sharing both the work of the board and the important issues that are before student faculty founders. We know that board service is a big time commitment, and you went above and beyond by also attending many of our advocacy committee meetings and then going back and working with students on those advocacy issues. So we wish you the best of luck next year at Washington University. And we know that you are going to do such great things. You have a huge and bright future ahead of you. So we just wanted to take a moment to
I just want to say on behalf of the administration, I think probably on behalf of everybody around this table, it's a privilege for us to feel like we have a presence in your life. You were blessed with an inspiration that few other people are of any age. You must know that, you must recognize that. We certainly see that in you, and your future is incredibly bright. Your potential is boundless, and just remember us, keep us in the back of your mind and help keep us updated on the great things that you do. Thanks for everything.
And Jenny, right? Remember Croton.
And Mary, thank you for making the decision to run for the board and for your service to our community. You approached this role thoughtfully and you made meaningful contributions to the committees you were part of during your tenure and to our overall decision-making as a board. You shared your thoughts with us and you always encouraged us to seek out and to consider different perspectives so that we were doing our best for students. So we just wanted to thank you. Often when a board member retires from service, we make a donation of a book to one of our school libraries in their name. And so we chose this book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, which is a beautiful book by Charlie Mackesy, and it's about friendship and belonging and the power of kindness. And if anybody hasn't read this book, I highly recommend it. It is really beautiful. It's gorgeously illustrated and it really has a beautiful message. So I'll leave it for you to take a look at it, but then we will donate it to the CET library in your name. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Again, on behalf of the administration, you made us better. You made our schools better. You made the lives of our students better through your engagement, through the questions that you asked, through your presence. Thank you for the profound gift of giving of your time away from your family to better the children of others in this community. Genuine, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Before we come into our work session, and I'm going to actually turn it over to Superintendent Walker.
Thank you, Sarah. We also have the opportunity tonight to offer our appreciation for two members of the board whose commitment to furthering their learning about board service has resulted in their recognition from the New York State School Boards Association. These two leaders also are our board officers for this year, and to me, they truly and genuinely represent the highest level of thoughtful leadership and stewardship of our community schools. And I'm genuinely honored to have the chance to work alongside both of them. Sarah, congratulations on receiving recognition from the School Boards Association by earning the Board Mastery Award. Along with this award comes the highly coveted prize of a free registration for a one-day NYSBA seminar. The gift that keeps on giving. But truly, thank you for your steadfast, wise, thoughtful, and truly amazing leadership and partnership. And the board also has a second member, who in this case has earned recognition from the State School Boards Association. Neil has earned the School Boards Association's Board Lifetime Achievement Award, which is a remarkable recognition and appropriate for someone whose dedication to school board service and leadership is befitting of that honor. Neil, congratulations on this truly amazing recognition, which, by the way, entitles you to a scholarship for free registration at the next NYSBA annual convention. So congratulations and thank you both. Really, it's a true pleasure.
District is giving you a bag.
And so, speaking of milestones, we wanted to take a step back, perhaps a few steps back, to conclude tonight's recognitions of board members who have reached milestones in their service to our students, our staff members, our schools and community. We wanted to take a trip way, way back to the year 1998. So let's take a trip down memory lane to that year. I graduated from high school in 1998 and refresh our recollections as to some of the major events and moments of that impactful and influential time. Notice the Saved by the Bell graphics here. So in the world of pop culture in 1998, Titanic was the #1 movie. Very well done, Greg. Musical effect. And the first portable MP3 player was launched 25 years ago. Talking Barney, #1 toy on the market, still popular, still around. Seinfeld's final episode, Jerry and the Gang, had their final go around. In financial news in 1998, you see the minimum wage, $5.15, average annual salary, a little over $38,000. Average cost of a new house, $129,000. That house in Croton now is slightly more than that. Average cost of a new car, a little over $17,000. And the price of a postage stamp, 32 cents 25 years ago. And gas prices were a little different then too. 1998 also saw the following advancements in technology, including the Google search engine being founded and Apple releasing its revolutionary iMac. And finally in 1998, a fresh-faced and almost impossibly hip Neil was elected to the Croton Harmon Board of Education. Since that time, Neil has brought his particular brand of leadership to our school system, providing a thorough review of, I believe, every single document ever produced by our school. And by bringing a profound love for policy, which seems to know no bounds. And by always being prepared to ask, as we have come to know, just one more question. But on a serious note, Neil, your commitment to the Tigers is an inspiration to us. You show love for our schools in ways which challenge us to continually improve and look forward to what's next for our students and our staff members. For the past 25 years, you've set a standard for engaged, collaborative, and supportive board leadership. And as a result, you are a foundational contributor to what makes our schools a phenomenal place to learn, to work, and to grow. And so on behalf of every student who's found inspiration and curiosity through our schools, every staff member who's known that they can look to you for guidance and for leadership, and every community member who has seen in you a board member who will engage with anyone and everyone and who loves the Croton community as he loves the schools. We thank you for 25 years and we look forward to all of the years ahead. You are most certainly the OG of the BOE. And for all of us, the policy daddy of Croton.
Board, a little gift for you.
Which you must open. We must open now.
Very careful.
You must open.
You must have a carrot.
So. Just to add a couple of things. One, you may wonder why I'm wearing. I'm wearing this because earlier today, the superintendent of schools said, if I wear my retro Mookie Wilson jersey, he will genuflect.
This is true.
It has been an honor and a privilege to be here in this room and in the prior rooms that we met in, to work for the community and to work for the students and to work for the staff. And I really think that, I could not have found a better way to give back to the community. I will tell you that the record of school board service in the United States is 64 years. I can strive for that. And I'll have a strong life for another 50. We'll see. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everyone, for indulging us in being able to honor some of the people with us this evening before we get into our work session. But we do have a really exciting work session tonight and a presentation from our architects, AG&B. Thank you so much for joining us. Didn't know if you have anything to start off on before we hop in.
Sure, I'd like to welcome our team. So Walt Hauser, our lead architect, yeah, we have 3 spots, maybe Sarah and Susan Davidson, and then we also have our representative Kevin Sawyer from Triton Construction, who's our construction manager. Yeah, okay. Okay, why don't you stand here?
Nice catch.
So our team has been working very hard these past few months and has a presentation for us this evening, which will give a glimpse into some of the planning and progress that we've made so far and the future ahead for our schools. So with that, I'm going to introduce Walter.
Well, thanks so much for having us this evening. I'm not sure what to make of the superintendent complimenting a board member with background music.
We're different.
Very exciting. Congratulations. So this is really fun to be here tonight. Thanks for making the time. I know this is a really busy time of year, but really this is a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of participation through not only our design team, but also the stakeholders in the district. We were trying to add up how many people we've actually talked to through this process over the past few months. It's over 100. So the engagement has been outstanding, but I do just want to introduce a couple of other team members. Bella Chen from our office, she's a project designer, and we have Wendy Yu. She's actually an architectural intern who's working on the project, and I just want to point them out because they've done so much work on some of the images and things you're going to see this evening. Construction, we introduced already. So tonight, really, we want to just provide an update.
Is your
on-
name tag?
We did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
So tonight we want to provide a review on all the capital projects, but really a focus on the 2022 future facilities project. So the first one is so exciting, stormwater improvements. But the good news is, as you're aware, we've awarded contracts and that work is scheduled to start this summer. So the plan you see on the screen is actually a site plan of the high school PVC campus. And the largest piece of work is part of the stormwater project improvements around the baseball field area. So that'll include the parking lot, the gravel parking lot zone, as well as the walkways around the baseball field. And then at the CET campus, I know it's a little bit difficult to read, we have isolated areas of catch basin and underground pipe replacement. So a little bit of disturbance in and around the campuses. I can assure you Triton has been working with the district administration to coordinate kind of construction operations with the school activities over the summer. So as excited as you could be about stormwater, we're going to say right. So the 2022 capital projects, the future facilities projects, are basically broken down into three groupings. So there's a district-wide roofing project, the athletic safety and security project, and then district-wide capital improvements. So that's the addition or the renovations at all the schools and all of the buildings. So we're going to talk about each of these briefly. The district-wide roofing replacements actually was able to be designed ahead of schedule. So we took a run at bidding some work for this summer. It was a little bit late in the year, but we said, we had the opportunity, let's try it. As you know, we've awarded a contract for construction of the replacement of the CET, partial roof replacement CET, as well as the district office. We're glad to report that work has come in under budget and we are now ahead of schedule. The remaining work at PVC and Croton Harmon High School will happen. We're planning that to happen next summer. So we will work towards a bid schedule at the end of this year, early next year. But good news here, ahead of schedule, under budget with a review. So athletic safety and security, this is primarily the work at Spencer Field, as well as the field behind PVC. And it includes work at each of the school buildings to improve safety and security. So there are two reasons that's paired together. One is it will be happening ahead or be designed ahead of the other work. And the safety is a priority component of the project. And it also allows the field to be aided. So it's maximizing aid as well as addressing high priority work. The schematic design is complete. And there have been a couple of pretty big hurdles to the design process. One is the Spencer Field is a very challenging site. It's extremely steep. It also has a pretty small footprint for the field. So we've been navigating topography, accessibility, and field size. So there's been quite a bit of discussion on that, but we're proud to say that we have an improved layout. So this is actually the PVC field. If you remember, the scope of work is converting the natural grass turf field to a synthetic turf field. And it includes some enhancements to the playground. So I'd just like to point out a couple features. The tiger striped area is actually a surfacing that will be applied to the pavement at the playground. The green and orange with orange circle and squares is the new turf. It's actually striped for soccer, has stripings for volleyball, and has some walking line stripings around the perimeter. But the idea is we're maximizing the usable space for different sports and trying to make it also fun and interactive for the middle school students. There are a series of shelters or overhangs, two at the top of the page, which are next to a seating wall, and then two to the right of the page next to the playground zone. So the intermediate to the playground and turf is a shelter area where we can get some shade or sit down for a minute. These are just a couple of inspirational images that we worked through with the committee. So you can see some concepts around a walking track built into the turf. It's really a turf surface with striping. a fun, energized play surface area, some netting, some shelters, and some benches and wall seating. So these were the images that were used to talk about the features that could happen as part of this project. So this is an overall image of the Spencer Field complex. Obviously, we can see the track and the synthetic turf grass. The gray squiggly line are the enhanced walkways and drives going down to the field. You'll notice at the bottom of the page, we've introduced an accessible parking area. So would be at the end of the field, very near where the storage containers are now. And that will provide limited parking for folks with accessible needs. There still may be a need to transport people down in a large event, but we have provided some on-field access. That's also a place for emergency vehicles to access the field or be in reserve, as well as some facilities needs in and out. I just want to point out one thing at the top of the page. There's kind of an odd looking orange triangle. That is the throwing events. So we've spent quite a bit of time figuring out a way to keep the throwing events at the turf field. And you may say, well, they're already there. What's the big deal? Can't actually throw on the turf. So if we throw a discus, definitely not javelin, you'll damage the turf. So we've found an area just to the north where we can have shot put and discus. Our landscape sports facilities designers are reminding us that this will not be a world record facility. It doesn't have the length, but it will be suitable for daily use, particularly in this section. In the event that there's an extraordinary thrower, person who works on throwing events, we may have to move it back up to the upper field. But the important thing here is on a day-to-day basis with the track and field program, everybody can be a sponsor. And that was a big deal as part of it, before the committee's view. Yes,
So
sir.
the distance basically for competition, unless we find out that we have somebody who's really going to Division I NCAA, that should be good enough for.
Yeah, the distance that we're working to right now is basically within, most, it's not within the section record, but it's within kind of the best for the section for most years. So, yes, if there's an outlier, they'll have to throw up on the upper CT field, but folks learning how to throw, for most people on the team, this is gonna be a great area.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. I was just wondering, like right where that parking is gonna be and then right around where the throwing is, those are ways that like, I know I'll like go up from Silver Lake or the trail to like get on the track. So how will people be able to get there now?
That's a great question. So we are gonna maintain the trail access to the site. So the trail, I believe, comes in just to the south of where the throwing event kind of base is located right now. So the bottom point of the triangle. And we are going to maintain access to the Spencer Field site on both ends.
Okay.
So great question.
I have a question.
Mhm.
The parking lot, I very much appreciate that you put that down there for accessibility. It looks a little far from where people would then go sit. How far is that and have you vetted that?
Yeah, it's another really good question. So we've looked at many options for parking to try to get it as close as possible to the stands. And the challenge is that the closer we get to the stands, the more vertical difference. And once we introduce a large vertical difference, we end up with a very circuitous ramp system. And we wanted to avoid that. So we felt that this provided the easiest access, the flattest access to the bleachers. And that's actually a good segue to the next slide. So these are blow-ups of that area at the end of the field, as well as the grandstand area. So we have now introduced a plaza concept. So there's a landing zone when one arrives at the field, which has access to a concession stand. So it's a diagonal square at the bottom, and then the bleachers. So the idea is the bleachers, concession stand, and the plaza are all on one level. So someone in a wheelchair would have very easy access to all those facilities. There's also a nice landing zone. And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures here in a second. This is the concept for the concession stand. So very straightforward, similar in size to what you may see at Brewster or Putnam Valley. About a 220 square foot concession area, some storage, 2 new restrooms. And that's situated on the site here. And you can see in the distance, we have a plaza. So the idea is this becomes like a home base. Everybody would arrive at this location Could be a place to have pop-up tents, could be a place to have a check-in, it could be selling gear. There's lots of things we can imagine happening there. Then the concession stand would open directly to that plaza, and one could walk from the plaza either onto the field or onto the bleachers. The plaza is up a little bit from the field, so there's a set of stairs that gets you access from the plaza to the field. The one nice thing is this puts a really super vantage point, so we're capturing some advantage of the hill, but making a really nice flat area for everybody to gather. Here's the view from the other side. Yeah.
So
We're
the
really,
bleachers are accessible as well.
yes, you'll notice that the lowest level of the bleachers is actually flat to the plaza. So the plaza will be one element and the bleachers just sit right on top of it. So we thought that was a really exciting development.
And so
for
this-
Spencer Hill.
Is this area is just like a walkway that would come then from the parking?
Parking, yeah.
And
Yes, on the left, there's a walkway towards the parking, and to the right in that image is a walkway that gets up by,
Mhm.
again, by the district office.
So the parking is at field level,
Mhm.
and then the access way up, there's a very gentle ramp and you're on the plaza.
And we can see that in the bottom left corner of this image.
I wonder if you could have golf carts or something to, you know, for people.
Mhm.
That's like too long of a distance, you know, if you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You still need.
Yeah. Great question.
When I looked at the draft that we received yesterday, there was one question that got answered, which is to get off the bleachers, there are stairs at either end, so there are two ways of egress if there is a need for emergency egress. Am I right?
Yes, so to exit the bleachers, actually, the bleachers themselves will have a number of aisleways coming down and then you can get off either end.
Either end.
Yeah.
But the other question I'm thinking about, a lot of members of our community use the track
Mhm.
for walking. And what I see as you have this drawn, there is a fence that goes around the track towards, the end zone, past the end zone, near where the parking would be. The only way that it appears that one can get down to the track from these drawings is from the plaza.
So,
And I'm just wondering, there's two corollaries that the first is, we want to make sure that the members of the community can use the track for, walking as people do. But we also want to make sure that when we don't want them to use the track, we have fencing such probably at the bottom of that stairwell and any other entrances that our custodial staff can close, building and ground staff can close off so that the track is closed. Is that kind of,
yeah,
do
so
I have both of those?
the proposal is to have a fence that surrounds the perimeter of the track. We're showing a 4-foot high fence, so this is really not going to prevent somebody from jumping it, but it'll send a message that it's either closed or it's not closed. And then there will be various gates around the perimeter. They're not shown necessarily in this rendering, and that's something we'll fine tune, but there will be multiple access points to and from the track, or from the perimeter of the track, I should say. There is also a fence that is going to be included between the field and the track, but that's a netting and it's demountable. So that's fall protection from activity that's happening.
Footballs and lacrosse.
Lacrosse balls are really the one that you have to worry about. And the idea is the track can be used while other sports are happening on the field as well.
Hey.
Yes, sir.
If we could go back to the PVC field diagram, please. I apologize for jumping back.
No, it's great.
I'm a little bit confused about this. Which side of where is PVC and where's the high school?
I'm so used to, we're so used to looking at these that I forgot to orient you. So the middle school PVC is down the page.
Okay,
It's literally the edge of the building is the darker line. Yes, exactly. Yes, just below the gray, just
okay.
below the gray. And then the high school, the baseball field would be up the page.
The baseball field is up here.
Yes. So the
Okay.
top of the page is the hillside that heads up towards the baseball field.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, there have been a series of requests to better enable bicycle and pedestrian access between the high school, specifically bicycle access between the high school and the middle school and PVC. And I wonder if we've addressed that yet, or if there, what our thoughts are on that.
I think that the impediment there would be the hill, the drive, the steep, the slope of the hill between the two sites. And we have not included anything to mitigate that driveway or change the way in which that driveway progresses from one campus or one building to the other. Is that your understanding of what the?
Well,
concern
I
is?
think the concern was more, right now, for bicyclists coming, say, students who are bicycling from, say, the vicinity of CET.
Mhm.
Their only route to go to PVC is often, the route that they usually take is they come down past the high school onto 129, along 129 and back up to PVC.
Mhm.
Because otherwise it's down and up,
Yeah,
right? And the request was for something that was a little bit a way to get them off of
Mhm.
129 was
Well,
the.
and also pedestrian or people in
Walkers as well.
wheelchairs.
Yeah,
Right now, the only way from PVC out into town is through stairs.
right.
People in wheelchairs cannot go traverse, or they have to go on the very busy Olcott, which there's no sidewalks on. So the thought was if they could go through to the high school and then they could go down into town on staying on sidewalks.
I thinking about that, there are a couple of things. First is that the rather steep, now paved path, right, from the high school field, baseball field down is necessary for fire access to the back of PVC, which we, when we did the additions before that, that's what we were talking about, since you can't come any other way. And when I look at these plans and I see the field, and then I also see on the right-hand side of the field, that red, what appears to be awning.
yeah,
Am I
so
right?
the
And
red
the
and green.
green awning. Okay, and then what I am not sure about is that access.
Just to the right of the playground.
Right to the right of the playground.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we're not proposing any change to that.
right, so,
The playground's in the same place it is now.
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm guessing that the issue is gonna be, while walkers could come down that same asphalt drive, as it's described, that is a very steep drive. If, for kids with bicycles, they can do it, you know, it's not well, they can walk their bicycles. It's like when you go into Central Park, they say, walk your bicycle when you go onto the pathways. But if there is another way, and I realize it may be very difficult, given the bedrock and the topography, to put something in there, that is something to think about.
Well, I think
I think-
wasn't part of the other issue though, there
Getting to
isn't,
the front.
is you need to be able to get to the front. Because the
Yeah.
bike racks are in the front and the bike racks should be in the front because security, for security reasons, right?
I'm wondering if this is something we can talk to the village about, because I don't think the district on the path, there is an appropriate path purely on district property. I think we may have to have a discussion with the village to see if there's any way that we can figure out a path jointly.
Yeah, the problem is that, we could talk about putting sidewalks on Olcott.
Mm.
But even if you do that, that doesn't change the issue of somebody coming from CT or coming from Upper Cleveland or coming even, you know, from like, you know, wherever they don't want to have to go all the way down on that very busy road. You want to come through the high school property. Or years ago, on the side of the high school is, and I know Josh has talked about it, that there is
Even
area
that
that
doesn't
the
really
district
do, yeah.
owns, but it is very steep, very
Mhm.
secluded,
Mhm.
and kids, before that was all fenced in, used to use that as a shortcut. And it was then, for insurance reasons, closed off, because we didn't want, you know, kids there, or adults for that matter. And so I'm not sure how we can do that The other way that one can approach, of course, CET, or rather PVC, is on Emerson, right, or, and then come up that way,
Thompson,
or Thompson.
Yeah.
it would have to be Thompson.
But that means that people would have to go down Radnor, and kids going down Radnor on their bicycles, where we already see issues that I've read about and heard about concerning people speeding down Radnor and going past school buses. That's not an ideal solution either. So it's, however we can do it, we
Yeah.
should think about it.
It's
If there is some
it
way,
is not it's not a trivial issue, and it's been discussed. This is something that has come up repeatedly at the Village Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. Unfortunately, just saying, well, we'll put sidewalks on Olcott turns out to be a rather difficult proposition, because it would essentially mean taking away the corner property's entire front yard.
and that's
Right, yeah,
also,
Olcott's pretty
That's-
narrow. to get
that
across.
also
How
is
close
rather
the property
steep.
line is, yeah.
right,
And
that's,
it's steep, it's a complicated location.
Right.
So, which is why, this came up. Something additional?
Yeah, it sounds like there's two parts there, right? Can we create a transverse pathway that connects the high school and middle school? Even if it's a lot more difficult to do that with a fire truck than it is with a bicycle. So
Right.
we may be able to just create a walking path that eases the slope a little bit.
Mhm.
And wheelchair, don't forget wheelchair with bike.
Wheelchair is a different story because it has to be 20% or less. And that
when you
may
say
be,
20%.
The grade.
20% slope.
it
or
has to
less.
be, it may have to be much, much flatter, but we'll take a look at it.
With landings,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, right. So
But to answer the question on getting around to the front,
that's the second part.
there is always, well, there's the stairs. Right, where if you go
Stairs.
around the kitchen, right, with our kitchen facility and go behind the fifth, sixth grade wing. Right, there's a path and that can take you around to the front. It is circuitous,
But there are stairs there.
but there aren't only stairs there because
There's a very steep bit of drive.
there's a very steep drive for the purpose of getting foodstuffs into the PVC cafeteria. Right, so
Yeah, I think the food stuff come around
They go around
from the
that
front,
same
but
way,
yeah.
yeah.
all right, well,
I think the issue there would be that the going from the fields down towards that back path is super steep. Yeah, stairs end up very steep. ramp.
But the going to the front, that's for the bike. That's needed for the bike for the parking. You're saying, right, the wheelchair
Yeah.
access might not need to go all the way to the front.
Right,
Perhaps they could exit through that
yeah.
back, just to keep those things, no.
I mean, the
They
other
need separate-
alternative is if bikes were parked in, if you will, a bike lot in the back,
Back in the high school.
in the back of the middle school, right? If the students had a protected area, you know, and then they couldn't leave in the middle of the day because their bikes were locked up. Right, and then, you know,
That's really a big
That is
issue. I'm like, that's the problem.
but then they could walk around. If they're biking to school, they could walk, it doesn't.
Well,
doesn't
Yeah, but I
deal
think
with
there's
real
security
We've
issues.
given the
with that,
problem
so
to
that's-
the architects,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
they'll come up with
Yeah.
it.
I have a separate question, if I may, since we're on this slide. What's the lighting gonna look like on?
So we're not talking about adding any additional lighting to the project. It's gonna function as it is right now, so it's not meant to be used at night. It's gonna
Mhm.
basically be lit the same way as.
That is the PVC.
The PVC.
PVC,
Yeah, yeah.
PVC.
Not Spencer.
Not-
Spencer will have lights.
Spencer's totally different. Totally different.
Sir, yeah.
And this can be used
Oops.
by the village too, like I know there's, like this town soccer plays there on the weekends and stuff, is that still usable?
Yeah, because it's striped for, right, it's the smaller soccer, right, for the younger youth leagues, right?
Yeah,
That's awesome, because it was unplayable many times.
yeah, and I can tell you the discussion, if you see this image in the upper left-hand corner with the kind of food track. We looked at doing something like that. The discussion was, let's maximize kind of the play surface just for
Yeah.
those events,
Mhm.
right? So that you can practice little, beehive soccer out here if you want, or even use it for practicing older sports, right? The partial lacrosse field or something.
Yeah. I appreciated the lines for the badminton and the volleyball.
Yeah.
The kids will like that.
And you're keeping the Gaga pit, right?
Gaga
Yeah.
is safe.
Yeah.
That's right about-
Very important.
That's one place I've never considered Gaga.
Mr. Black was very clear about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
A question, why no evening events at PVC? Because we have the Spencer Field,
In terms of why we didn't light it,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Well, remember, it's.
But also, it's not big
half
enough for
size.
any regulation
Yeah, these are.
sports.
There's-
It probably would be useful
Yeah.
for a like 6, 7, 8-year-old ASO, you know, that's smaller, could be for T-ball. If you.
Youth
could configure
gathering,
it,
you know.
you know, a small youth football, but it's not something that would be used that much, I think, that would be worth the cost.
Yeah, the cost.
Lighting.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
Yeah.
Cost benefit doesn't there.
And also, an and nighttime illuminated field that close to neighbors
Yeah,
Mm,
that would be.
also presents some,
That'd be good.
you can imagine could present some complaints.
And just to be clear, sorry, that one, that playground is just a image, right? That's not
these are
actually.
just
Okay.
inspirational images that
Okay.
use for discussion.
Thank you.
And quickly on the lighting, there's another component for lighting at this site. You'll see the walkway, that there are lights that come down from the district office to the field. So now that the field, you know, we're gonna have new light in the field, and we expect lots of evening activity to create a safe, lighting path.
Is there lighting in the parking lot as well? Is that part of it?
There's no lighting in the parking lot.
The parking lot, you mean the.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
ADA.
I remember that being an issue sometimes at night, you know. You get here, it's light, but on the way.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. We'll see how, the parking lot is, it's not on the field, but it's right next to it. And that may be something that can be illuminated with the event lights.
So,
Uh,
question about lighting is. A couple of years ago, I was wandering lost in the woods in Yorkshire with my wife.
This sounds like a
No,
good
it's okay.
story.
And we happened upon the Granite Springs
Mm,
facility.
mm.
And I had mentioned this to our athletic director and others, looking at the lighting that they had. That's a much larger project energy responsive. They had these really neat space age looking lights, which are not, as you show,
They're linear.
they're linear and they looked really cool. I don't know if they are cost effective. I don't know if they are, you know, illuminate as well, because we were there during the day.
Mhm.
But I'm wondering about those as a possibility. I don't know if you're familiar with them or have been
I
up there.
am, I know a little bit about them, not a lot, but, one thing I can tell you. With these lights, we are going to be looking at fixtures that provide as much cutoff as possible, so. The lights, at Grand Springs, in my memory, have arrays that kind of shine out.
Yeah.
And they're quite visible
Mhm.
from below. And we want to look at products that provide as much direct downlight without spill. And if it means that we get those cool looking ones, the bars that achieves it, we'd be all for that. But we know there's some sensitivity to light on this site, so. There are a couple of manufacturers that we know are very good at that. Musco would be one of the name brands. Ephesus by Cooper Lighting is another one. Those would be the two we would typically start with, but I am aware of that company that was put in, the manufacturer that used the Grand Springs. We can take a look at that as well.
Yeah, and I just thought it was cool. I don't, you know, there's
Yeah,
I think the concerns that you mentioned about downlighting and not, and no spillage
yeah,
is more important
Yeah.
for us and our neighbors. But I did have one other question, which is about the track.
Hmm.
The Scarsdale High School track has lighting around the track, football fields in the middle. So because what I'm thinking, and they have that on every evening as a community amenity. And I don't know the cost is Scarsdale, it's not us, but I'm wondering whether even if the lighting is on at on the field, as you've shown it, whether that lighting will be sufficient to light the track. And thinking also, forget about the community as well, thinking about if we are gonna have nighttime track and field competition. How do we ensure that the entire track, and the shot put area will be lit sufficiently for nighttime events?
So, I think the simple answer is on the track, yes, we're gonna get the lighting system will light the track. In terms of the walking lighting, so years ago, we would put an intermediate light on the light pole. And it would just be safety lighting for the track, because the fixtures themselves were like either on or off, and it took 20 minutes to warm up, and it was like prison lights, you know. Now with the LED lights, there are a lot of options, and they're dimmable, essentially, where you can turn specific heads on and off. It's a lot easier to control light levels. So what we see more frequently now is a setting that's like a safety evening walking setting, let's say, or provides a certain level of lighting on the track, but not, it's not competition level. So that's typically how we see that achieved now.
And if we did have a nighttime track and field competition, it would be brighter, but it would cover sufficient for the competition.
Question about the turf. Is what you would use for this field the same as you would use for the PVC field is also turf, right? Would it
PVC
be the
is
same?
also turf. So that's a good segue. So the next kind of set of this design work and decisions, so schematic design is really setting things in the right location. We've done a lot of work on testing different locations, testing field sizes. We feel really confident now that everybody's in agreement on the field size, the location, the arrangement. The next exercise will be detailing that, developing all the construction details, and then at some point specifying the products. So that's when we start talking about the light fixtures themselves, and more importantly, the turf selection. So the turf selection will involve the monofilament or the filament selection, the plastic piece, as well as infill. And those may be different depending on the site, because those components are specified for the use. So for instance, a football field will require different turf than a field hockey field. Those would be kind of the extremes, but it may make more sense to have something at PUC that's a little softer for lighter bodies. And then maybe the Spencer is a little bit firmer, so it plays a little quicker for bigger bodies.
And I know we will be talking at some point about what the fill will be.
Yes.
Whether it's gonna be crushed rubber.
Yeah, and quite frankly,
We'll need to talk about that because it's.
That's something that can happen around, you know, that discussion will not materially impact the design.
Right.
So that's something that can come along the way as well. Okay. All right.
Could you add to the timing? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Spring to fall 2024, does that include fall sports?
So let's talk about, if you don't mind, can we talk about that at the end? Kevin has a whole district-wide schedule.
Okay, perfect.
All really good questions. I think the simple and the short answer is we're not sure exactly when we're gonna start yet and when we'll finish. A lot of that has to do with SCD approvals and when we can award bids, and quite frankly, the weather in the spring. So there's some decisions to make. Okay, so district-wide capital improvements. So this is, you remember, all of the exciting renovations in the school buildings, as well as a number of infrastructure improvements throughout the district. So schematic design is complete for this work. Again, if you remember, that's plan layouts, organization of the project, what areas we're working on, general configuration. We now into design development. So that means a more detailed design of each space. And we're excited to share some renderings this evening. So we do have some imagery. Now that we know what the spaces are, generally how they lay out, we're using 3D imagery to start to communicate some of the concepts. So really excited to share some of these ideas. So we're going to start at CET. If you remember, the project at CET includes gymnasium, interior gymnasium upgrades, some interior cafeteria upgrades, kindergarten wing courtyard improvements, library renovation, and a host of infrastructure improvements that were identified through the building condition survey. So we'll start with the gym. The gym renovation is fairly straightforward. This includes replacement of some gym equipment to include the basketball backstops and hoops, gym wall padding, painting, and door replacements. So the big improvement here are the hoops. Sounds pretty straightforward, but they were installed in 1954, a little bit difficult to retrofit. So we're installing all new hoops that will go up and down. So there'll be motorized movement. So very simply, they can be lowered down for the smallest of scholars and then raised back up for some of the bigger kids. So I think in terms of functionality, that will make a big difference within the gymnasium. So I'm actually gonna ask Sarah to talk a little bit about courtyard.
Right, yeah. Okay, so next we're gonna look at the courtyard. So what you're seeing here is a sketch that we had way back at the beginning. And we did go through, as we said, we had talked to a number of different stakeholder groups, and we've kind of worked through all the ideas that everyone had for this. And came upon this idea that we wanted to be able to have kind of seating around both sides, and a really nice space that kids could use, teachers could use as an outdoor classroom. We could have small events there. You could do maybe even fit a whole grade level would be ideal. And then there's a central focus. So we could do everything from, you know, just a teacher talking to their students to maybe a small play outside. As well, the idea was that this courtyard would be used for so many different events and different times of the day. So that we wanted to make sure that the shaded areas and sunny areas as well, depending on the season that you're out there. And as well, also taking into consideration maintenance and being able to clear the snow when we need to. So choosing materials is really important for that. We don't want to go in and put down like a full playground surface if we're going to rip it up when we start to plow. And so you can see just a few of the images that we had kind of been showing all along about the ideas of some seat walls with some kind of like turf areas in between, because kids often like to kneel on the ground and do their writing on the, you know, when they have a project outside, they want to write on the bench. And then of course, adding some shade structures in. And here is, so we'll start to show you some of these renderings now. Just to give you an idea where we are, these renderings are kind of a first pass. They're definitely not the final design, and things like, you know, specifics and colors are the things that we're going to start to talk about next. But what we've done is just try to give you a hint of what the space would feel like and how does it work when you're kind of sitting in that space. And so this, the idea of this is you kind of have a very kind of comfortable amphitheater space with lots of room for plenty of children and a lot of different, you know, kind of areas for them to hang out for snack time or other times of the day.
So on the shade structures, are they fabric?
Yes, that's what we're showing.
And thinking about them for maintenance, this is how do they get affixed and how do they get taken down? Because I'm sure that's going to become a job of the facility and the building, the ground people.
Right.
Hi, Brad. And I want to make sure they can do the work they need.
Yeah, and we've been in conversation with them the whole time on all of these meetings. So they are, the fabric itself is demountable, you can take that down. And typically, I believe the posts themselves are permanent. It is possible, I believe, to do them as temporary, but ideally, you're able to keep that out most of the year.
Yeah, this is really meant
it's
to
snowing.
be a permanent installation. If the fabric needed repair or damaged for some reason, the fabric is deep, you can take it down, but the expectation would not be to demount these every season and put them there.
So even in the winter, I mean, when you're thinking about, big snowfall and you get, 12 inches of snow on top of the fabric, you don't want them to.
Right, so the fabric will have a pitch to it. It will not just sit flat. And these will be more substantial than, let's say, kind of the windsail ones you might put up in your backyard and tie up to a tree or something. These will be substantial fabric, secured probably most likely with steel cables.
Walter, I see a picture in the spotlight over there. It's very familiar.
There's some friendly people.
Although, if you blow to my ego, it looks like no one's listening. I'm talking, nobody's listening. I need to reflect on that.
Yeah.
We try to make it relatable.
So, thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
You're all whispering. That's cool. Anyone else?
So Sarah, you were mentioning the, like the material, so what's right now depicted in the blue and the yellow,
Yeah.
what kind of material is that? Because you
It's like
mentioned.
a
right
sail
now-
fabric.
No.
No, I mean on
No,
the ground,
right,
right? Because you're talking about like plowing and
So
and things
the,
like
the
that.
area that's colored is actually like a playground surface, so
Okay.
it's a soft surface, but if you note around the edge. We're starting to add in kind of a harder surface around the edge for walking, and that would be able to be plowed and cleared with a shovel or a small machine.
I think one of the issues now is the whole area is rubberized surface.
Yeah.
So to maintain a safe egress path in the
Mhm.
winter, that surface inevitably gets damaged.
Mhm.
Just through normal maintenance activities.
Yeah, so that was a big part of the discussion, was being able to make sure that we have a playable surface, a soft surface, something colorful. At the same time, allowing for that hard surface to be.
So that would really, in essence, mean that when it is very rainy or when it is in the snow, that can't be plowed, it's going to be wet and or have snow on it, which means that when kids go out there, they aren't gonna jump in the snow on it. It will do, but it will be something that is not gonna be separated with any barrier. Like, you know, like any other playground surface that has an asphalt path around it, so that we'll just have to make sure, or our staff have to make sure that if they're hand shoveling or using a snow blower, they don't go onto
Yes.
the rubberized playground surface. Okay.
I hate to leave, but we have many other things to look at. So next we're coming inside of the elementary school and into the library. Again, we've had multiple meetings with multiple groups, stakeholder groups, including librarian and teachers who will be using the space. And some, input from students, of course, across the board. And we've come up with a really interesting plan for the library, which I'm actually gonna let Sue take on a little bit.
So what you'll see on the slide there is the floor plan is on the right-hand side, and then on the left-hand side are, again, just inspirational images just to provide ideas and allow people to give us feedback on what they like and what they might not like. And so the way that this process worked is similar to the other areas, in that we met with the stakeholders, the different people that use the library, talked about, what works for you and what doesn't, how can we optimize the space. And we went through a couple iterations of this, and right now the plan is in pretty good shape. You still come into the library in the same way that you've always come in through that door and a half that they have. But what we've done is we've taken the space kind of up in the upper right-hand corner and created a conference room that's accessible from the hallway, and a storage room behind that can be used, that right now has a stepped floor in there. And but we'll get rid of that stepped floor and provide some cabinets in there and a place to provide some storage. The main library space is divided into different programming areas right when you walk in, you kind of see the desk right ahead of you, and then you'll have your makerspace area. So those odd shaped clover tables are makerspace tables that would have storage underneath. And behind that, there'd be a sink and some cabinets and a place for everyone to store everything. Right now, they're in some little bins and they're kind of, on and off tables. And to the right of that, you see that there's lounge space. There's some lower type of seating, and there's a monitor on the wall there. We have all the books down on the lower right-hand corner, away from the windows and kind of up against the walls, and are leaving the windows, which are really quite large and really nice, on the left there for a dedicated reading area and a little classroom area.
Can I just have one thing, Sue? We've also removed a lot of the office space in there, that there was a very just specific request from the librarian that wasn't space that was very usable, it didn't support the program in there, and I think the thought was it was much more productive to have that activity happening and with engagement to the student.
All right, so the desk is set up so you can see the entire library, and even if you're sitting at the desk, which they're usually not, but if they were, you can still, you have visuals for those days. We are now starting to look at the library in 3D and think about, how can we make this a real engaging space and make it playful and kind of refresh the area. And if everyone is familiar with the space, they have those really funky, mechanical units, as you see here. This is our first go at the library. We are looking at a carpet tile that is very colorful, and you can pull from the color, you can pull it into into the lighting and to what's happening around the ductwork. So you're looking at kind of the desk is right there on the right, and your maker space is ahead of you, and all the bookcases are down there on the left. I think we have another.
Yeah, so this would be the view as you walk in the room.
Right, and then this is kind of back by the door that goes out to the courtyard. We're looking back, so you would see there's the classroom area, the book stack area, the reading space is right ahead of that. They talked about they're using a mobile monitor. And we took advantage of the ductwork and made it into something that looks more like a sunflower. And these are actually felt panels that hang down. They're wool panels, and they'll actually help with acoustics in the room. We're talking about still putting a new ceiling above that to again help with the acoustics. And we've actually extended the ductwork onto the other side, and just in the same shape as what it is on the side that you're looking at, just to really unite the space and make it feel like one room. And then there's one more view, and that's again the view of the maker space, the circulation desk, and you can see we're started with kind of some trees and maybe some nooks, reading nooks for individuals.
So believe it or not, the CET building was a recipient of some architectural accolades. When it was first constructed, it was considered a modern vision for a school. And this ductwork was serving the cafeteria space at the time, which now is your library. So from an architectural perspective, the ductwork has some historic value. And it is kind of iconic for your library. So I think the approach that's been developed is apropos. So
That's beautiful.
okay.
Yeah, I guess it appears that the areas in the makerspace in this rendition right in front of us are on wheel tables. Is it anticipated that the flexibility of that area may mean that if the media specialist wants to do something else, those will be basically rolled away to some other point? Is that the thought?
I think it's probably a little too early for the furniture piece in terms of whether or not it'll move. My guess is that the staff members that were doing the modeling for this, that was the piece of furniture that was most readily available in 3D.
Okay, I
so-
just wondered, because that's sometimes,
Yeah,
that's where we see in some
I
places.
think
but
we're talking about having
don't-
storage in those units right now.
Units
So-
in storage, that you can get them mobile, actually, and if you did want to really move things away, you
If
could.
we do that, but that has negative parts
There-
too, so.
Pros and cons to that.
So.
And this is one of the spaces where, so we had a lot of time to talk with Rennie as well.
Mhm.
She has a lot of really great ideas and she's very specific about the things that they like to do. And,
Mhm.
you know, we had said, do you want the kids to be on the ground or do you want them, she said they stand all the time, you know, so we're always looking at picking furnishings that match the program and match what the kids are actually doing in those spaces.
One other
And I-
question, these are all option one. And then we
Oh,
go
that
on
was
PVC.
the previous iteration.
I'm just wondering if you were gonna talk about option two.
Well, so all of the renderings, the 3D views that you're gonna see today are a first pass, right?
Okay, so
so,
that's why you mean.
Yeah, so what we do is we take our plans and we develop them as 3D images and we start to put, color and furnishings in them to give you an idea of what the space looks like. And then design development, which is the phase we're in right now, is when we say, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. We get it now. We like this, we'd like to change this. These are the colors we'd like to use. Those are the kind of things that we haven't even kind of broached as much. So that's coming.
Could you talk a little bit about those conversations around, like the kids standing versus sitting or whatever? I did notice a couple of reading nooks, and I know, Mrs. McManus does a great job with all the activities, and the maker spaces and all that in library. But around like actually reading during that time, are there spaces where kids might kind of curl up and?
So I think between on all the groups that we were with, Rennie had the most information for us. She was very and specific in a really good way. So she said, this is what they do here. This is what they do here. She has this period in the morning before school starts when kids come in and they kind of like to hang out and read, and she encourages that, of course. And some of them like to have their own little nook, right? That they feel comfortable, they feel protected, they want to hide out by themselves and read. So she wanted spaces for that. I think we're keeping the kind of Lego wall in there as well. So there's spaces for play. And anything else that she had mentioned in conversation with you?
Well, then we haven't, like Walter said, we haven't gotten to the furniture aspect of it, but we did discuss having these reading stairs in the area by the window, which are like movable stairs that right now, I think we just showed some soft seating, but movable type of stairs that you can move around. And like was mentioned before, if you did have a large group or something in there, we talked about these tables in the classroom being some type of flip and nesting tables. So you could clear that whole area out because that's the area by the window. And if you had anything, we always try to use the natural light.
I think it depends on the programming event that's happening, but if there is an opportunity for, let's say, a class to be in there and then have time to read, I think the vision is students could be in any number of spaces. They could be on those little pod stools we see in the background. There's a serpentine type of couch or seating arrangement they can sit on or lie down on. They could sit at the tables at the maker space or even sit in the soft seating at the front entrance. So there's some variety of spaces, and if they're like me, they'll probably just lie down somewhere.
Maybe some beanbags.
And I think another important thing too is that they don't have that much help in this room, and there are kids coming in and out all day long. And the furniture should be as flexible as possible so that if the teacher says, okay, next period, I've got this group coming in, I want to do this, they can easily kind of shift a little bit and use the space for different numbers and different sizes.
Okay, so we think this is a very
One
exciting
question
approach.
which I guess, looking at the 5-year plan from 2015 and thinking of my recollection, maybe it's just because it's already been changed. The ESL room, Janet Quato's room, was at the far end of the library, the south, where is.
Yes, currently still there, but we are repurposing.
Okay, so that would be, that area below that
Yeah.
line is what is now Janet Quato's room, and she will move somewhere else, and that will be repurposed.
So the white areas are where we'll be closing the doors that are currently exist there.
Right.
And that room is going to be used for music practice, which currently I believe is in the room in the top corner with the steps and it's, through the library and not isolated. So, it's a really great little space. And, so that will be, but it will be separate from the library, so acoustically separated as well, and access through the hallway only. Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about. So next we're moving on to PVC. Basically the most interesting part about this school and our conversations with Principal Plotkin were the musical chairs that are happening to make these 4 spaces, or actually 5 spaces that we're doing work in this school. So we have a new flex and PPS space, a renovation of a classroom into a new science room. We have a courtyard outside. there's going to be a teacher hub and conference center up on the top floor and a new student support center. And so in order for, and all of these spaces are moving from one to another to another. So it really is this kind of cycle of having to move this one here and this one here. But really kind of the most exciting part of this is the new student support center, which is now, as I understand, in pieces across the school. And not as, you know, conglomerated and as a nice welcoming space for the kids. So it's now going to be located on the ground floor when you come in. And in a really nice location, you know, if you have visitors coming in from, you know, parents coming in, but also for the kids to feel like they have kind of a space to come to that's comforting and welcoming. So that's a big part of this.
It's also an effort to destigmatize any, you know, reason to go there. It's front and center of the building. It shows a core space. It'll be visually present, and be really integrated into the fabric of the most important spaces in the building, the main office, the front entry. It'll be a landing space.
Yeah. And so all of the other spaces that you see here that we're not talking about today are the infrastructure areas. We're doing a lot of floor replacements, some ceiling replacements in the hallways, and of course, the usual kind of bottle filling stations. So the first space we're looking at is the new Flex PPS suite. And basically, we're doing very minimal
So
renovation.
this space is the original main office.
Yeah, original main office,
And
yeah.
who's currently in there now?
And currently in here is the
Guidance.
guidance, right? Yeah, this is where it gets confusing, who is where, right? So basically, we've again had long conversations about the uses of the space. And the idea with this one is that we've got kind of a central space where they may be able to have some small group classes. There's a monitor on the wall next to that table, as well as 2 desks for the staff that work there. The space on the left is going to be more of a potential private space with the door, but we do have glass, and so there's an ability to see what's going on in that space. It can be used for private conversations or work with the student one-on-one. The space on the right is actually more open, which was a request as well, because they wanted to have good visual contact with whatever going on in the space. But really kind of a relaxing, cool, calming space with different types of seating. We've also removed, after long discussions, removed an old bathroom that's in there to make more space for storage and everything that is needed to make maximum use of the space up there.
And Sarah, the configuration of multiple rooms within the main office suite, original main office suite, is actually conducive to the Flex program, right?
Absolutely.
Because we developed kind of softer nooks within the room instead of having one large open space.
Right. And the only thing that is not moving is that the vault, the safe that is at that, you know, right up in the end.
It's going to do that.
It's gonna stay there. We're not touching.
I guess I'm confused as to the location of.
3rd floor.
Where
Oh,
the
okay.
original office is.
We don't have that
I
diagram.
think the number.
third floor
is
diagram.
308.
No, if you go to the previous slide,
The previous slide is a different floor.
different floor, but
Yeah.
It's above,
It's kind of right above.
above science.
Yeah.
okay,
So that would be the original front stairs of the building. If you go up and turn to the right.
okay,
Yeah.
understood.
So the next space is on the, well, 2nd floor, which is actually the floor you enter in, so I call it the ground floor, even though it's on the ground. Is the science classroom room 224, which is down the hall. So currently being used as, I believe, a flex classroom space, but we are going to really just do a good old interior renovation to the space. There are a few things that we can't touch in the room. There is actually some water service coming in the corner. So we're going to work with that. And then, of course, the windows in that space are quite high. There's a ladder. So, you know, we have emergency access to a rescue window there. So we're not doing as much along what would be the lower wall in the room, but we decided to put a bunch of whiteboards there because the teachers were talking about how that's a really important part, being able to use those for teaching. The rest of the room is going to be flexible furniture, easily movable. We're going to be doing drop-down electric from the ceilings. And then along the right side of the room, you'll see we're putting in a whole new line of cabinetry, something really, really simple. The teacher's just going to have a simple space there with a mobile teaching board. And then, of course, one of the big requests was to have cubbies so the kids can get all their stuff out of the way and that they can focus on the work in the center of the classroom. So refresh of, you know, kind of like the ceilings and the paint and everything else in the room as well. Next is the courtyard. So this sketch, of course, the next step in this is gonna be going to a 3D rendering, but this is the original sketch that we had. And it was, again, with the stakeholders chosen out of a number of options that we had. But we had talked a lot with Michael about having kind of an amphitheater set up where he could, you know, do his speeches to everyone and, or the teachers.
So recite stoicism.
Yeah, no, Greek theater, amphitheater reference. But the real idea with this space is that it should be able to be used for recess, for classes, for lunch outside. And, you know, especially, you know, thinking back to the times when we had COVID there was a need to like get people outside and have a number of spaces for them to use out there. So we're calling out for some special kind of like stone seating down in the lower corner. There'll be some plantings in there. Again, a shaded structure over the seating area, similar to what we saw in the last rendering at the CET courtyard. And then some trees planting to create a little bit more shade there. And then in the process of doing this, we're also going to kind of clean up the grading in there a little bit because there's some dips and some steep spots. So we're trying to level that out, but also make sure that everything, all the water and the runoff from the playground, from the hill, does not affect the courtyard itself and that it's draining to the proper place. And then another space inside so this is up on the 4th floor. And this is going to be kind of a teacher hub and conference center.
So this is the existing flex space.
Yes,
It's
which
all-
has
all the
a
way
shower in it.
All the way upstairs, and this is the old locker room
Yeah.
facility. And it looks like the locker room facility, there's still
Still does, yeah.
tile
Right, right.
showers. and,
So we're gonna clean all that up.
It's not a great flex space.
Yeah.
Currently, so.
Yeah. So we're actually taking out all the interior partitions in this space, opening it up to one large room. But at the same time have kind of cordoned it off to make a few separate little spaces there. So as you walk in the door from the bottom of the page, there's an area on the right have some built-in seating with some electric. So, you know, teachers can kind of come there, sit with their laptop, do a little bit of work. We have a kind of a kitchenette area off to the left. And then the area at the top of the page is meant as a very flexible space. So there will be some seating, maybe something similar to what we have going on here, as well as you can't see to the plan, but I think it's not there, but there's like stackable tables as well. So we'd be able to do all kinds of different functions in that room. You could have seating, you could have tables, and use it similarly to the way we use this space. So that will be a nice addition since they don't really have enough conference space, and I think the conference room in the office holds very few people. So that would be helpful.
So in looking at this, I'm thinking the faculty conference room across the hall from here. And the faculty room and conference room serves a similar function that you envisioned
So
here.
as far as I understand, this will not replace the faculty lounge that is on the 2nd floor, right? So that's gonna still continue to function that way. This space is not meant for a full day, full week faculty lounge. It is meant for meeting special events, but could also be used at the same time for some kind of quiet space to work.
This may be a workroom, maybe a little professional development, team meetings.
Yeah. Imagine it will be checked out often.
Yeah, as you said, it doesn't really exist at PVC now.
Yeah,
It's a different
right,
way.
exactly.
It's important.
Yeah. So then we come to our final space in the building. Do you want to? Student Support Center? Go ahead. So again, we're talking about this Student Support Center, which if you imagine those walls are not here right now, is one large science classroom on that main floor. Well oversized and does not need to be so. So we moved that science classroom down the hall. And we've taken this over to be able to take all of those disparate spaces for student support and put them into one place. So when you kind of come in, the idea is that there's, you walk in the door and on the left side, you're gonna have someone there to help you right away, staff person. The staff that work in there will each have their own office. We do have some kind of doors with side lights there, so they do get some light in, but they will be privacy screened in some ways. We have to decide how that's gonna happen because they know that there are obviously important private conversations that happen in those offices and testing. And the rest of the space is just really meant to be a place for kids to kind of come, feel comfortable. Again, like there's no stigma coming to this place. It's actually somewhere really enjoyable to be. And some kind of seating, which you'll see in the rendering. And then as well, there's a long kind of area with tables, which can be for, you know, small group work sessions together, or one-on-ones with the staff. So this is our first shot and a rendering standing in the space. One of the star elements of this is kind of the large round light and seating in the center, which thrilled Michael when he saw it. He was very excited about the spaceship, so as he calls it. And but yeah, the idea is that, you know, kids can come in here and feel kind of like they're in a calm and quiet space, that it's welcoming, that it's not, you know, as it is right now, when we talked with a lot of the psychologists, is that the kids really like what we've done with the spaces we have. You know, they have soft seating, they have different types of places for them to sit. And but this way it kind of brings it all together. And so they feel like a little bit more of a maybe a community environment.
And I just like to shout out to Bella and did all the work on.
Yeah.
On the edges you're seeing.
So the view you're looking at right now, so the entrance would be on the right, and what you don't see here is that we're gonna have a bit more glass as you walk in the door, so people will be able to kind of see through. It's not a closed off space. There'll be room on, you know, the wall there as you walk in, if they have things that they need to put up. And then kind of this kind of round, almost comforting, you know, couch space where someone can sit by themselves, they can sit with a friend. And then beyond, you see that kind of next to the windows, a longer table for, you know, groups or single kids to be able to do.
Might just be a nice place to do your homework, and then just read a book, get a little extra help.
I'm just wondering, I know, I think some of the student support professionals do a small group discussions with kids. And I'm just wondering where that is envisioned, because probably that tables on the.
So that's one
Back.
option, that's one option, but if you look to the bottom of the page, there's kind of almost what looks like a mini conference room. So in the bay window there, it's a really nice space. Of course, we wanted to give it to someone as an office, but we thought, why not be equal about it? Everyone gets the same office, but we can create this really nice space where they can do small group meetings in there.
Is it the expectation to be a table with kids sitting around it? Because I'm thinking that for the kind of session that I'm envisioning, or that I just mentioned, softer seating and
Okay.
a more informal
Right.
method of discussion might be, or area might be more
Right.
inviting for kids and for staff.
Yeah, and that's the discussion we can have with the professionals that work in the space, you know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a table most of the time, but you want to be able to move it out of the way? Is there some kind of furnishing that we can have out in the other space that you can kind of easily pull in and out, so that we're not furnishing everything with soft seating and you never have, you know, the table off.
Okay.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the advantage now of moving into this kind of 3D discussion presentation. We can post some of those ideas. Folks can see this and react to it a little more easily. So it's starting to get pretty exciting. Okay, the high school. So there's a lot going on at the high school. Everybody remembers we're adding some enhancements to the main entry, security vestibule. We're at the high school upgrading the flex and PPS spaces. Then there's a video production relocation, which actually has to do with some of the cafeteria work, finding new homes for some spaces that are displaced as part of that. There's the auditorium and music suite renovation, science classroom renovations upstairs, cafeteria and kitchen improvements, the second floor innovative learning center, and then a host of infrastructure improvements. So quite a bit of activity planned for the high school. And we go to the next page. So you may have seen an image like this previously. This is speaking to the main entrance improvements. And the primary move here is to engage the personnel that attend to the front doors with a secure vestibule. So to move the student traffic interface with visitors back behind kind of the point of contact. So I can tell you as a visitor, when I arrived at the high school, I walk through the hallway to the front desk. And, you know, there are lots of people, everybody's very friendly, but I think ideally the idea would be that conversation will happen before you're in the building. So that's the primary focus of improvement to the front entrance.
So in that regard, what you have is, and looking both at the rendering and the plan, you would basically be moving the entrance out, building like a second. So the door, 3 doors we see there would be the same 3 doors that are there. And we're just gonna, in essence, put something, not an indentation, so to speak, but this security.
So you'd be creating a new line of doors out basically underneath the high school sign.
Right.
So it would be enclosing that whole space and making it quite a bit larger.
Yeah, we want to make the lobby large enough to be functional, right? So actually someone can actually wait while another person is speaking to the attendant. And then the attendant would be sitting with a window to the vestibule and then an opening to the hallway. So they can still interface with any students, because I do see quite a bit of action between, you know, the students and the attendant out there for whatever reason, various reasons. So we can very easily maintain both those functions, but maybe just change the sequence.
So you show a stairwell and then an exit door.
Yes,
Which I
It's
mean,
existing, yeah.
So, okay, so that's existing inside.
yeah.
Right, in that area.
And so that would mean, thinking of security, that we would expect the 2 doors to the bottom of design to be locked, open in the morning when, or in the afternoon, if you want to have, but otherwise be locked, and someone would be able to go into the inner vestibule, right? Security vestibule, and with the inner doors to that vestibule also be locked until the security person basically
Yeah.
unlock them.
Exactly.
So we're expecting that security person to greet people on the outside and operate 2 separate sets of security doors.
Yeah, the functionality of the exterior doors, I think is an operational question, how you want to do that, but certainly the interior doors would be primary point of control to just ensure that whatever business needs to be taken care of before someone enters the building, that's addressed, and then they can.
The doors, the exit doors coming from the stairway, I'm a little bit concerned about, you know, student comes down the stairway, takes the shortcut out, somebody else scoots in. And it creates an opening, and it sort of strikes me that those doors ought to be for emergencies only. And
Alarmed.
potentially
Right.
crash bar alarm, potentially.
I guess the other thing about
Deter
that.
that.
Never see the news, students never use them.
So
The
it'd be
other
pretty easy to have an
option,
alarm.
the other option is to segregate the visitor entrance with glass. So that they were not mingling with the students that already had access to the building. So when we finalize the plans, we'll work with Alteris, our safety and security advisors, because they have been involved in a number of projects throughout the county. And they've offered some really valuable information to us. So that is one of the options, just to like a sheet of glass so that the visitors are segregated from the rest of the students and staff.
I'm also thinking about egress from the building in case of an emergency. Because now what you don't have now, but will have, is kind of a stairwell coming down, people exiting the building in an emergency. People exiting from the rotunda and from other places like the main office or this room, and all funneling into this pathway, and you got that big, I'll call it big booth with a wider door on one side, a narrower door on the other side. And my concern is if it is an emergency, does that become a choke point that impedes egress and potentially creates panic? And
Yeah.
how do you?
Yeah, we're gonna look at that. So
Okay.
for the whole building, we'll do what's called a code compliance survey. And part of that survey will evaluate egress capacity. So anytime we change doors or change egress grids, SCD will require this from us. So I can tell you, it's a calculation. There's a certain number of people by code that can travel through a door in an egress calculation. And it's the calculation is 0.2 inches per occupant. That makes sense?
0.2 inches per foot.
Or 0.3 depends on some scenarios, whether or not there's stairs involved. So you can get quite a few people through each door, but that'll be a calculation for independent areas. So we'll look at the classroom and identify the ways that it will get out. So we'll take a look at that. The short answer is we're going to do that. Okay, good comment on the stair door. We'll work with Alterra on that to make sure that either way is resolved and addressed.
Okay, so going down the hall a bit, we're looking at the Flex and PPS suite. We are actually doing again.
Want to say what that is?
Yeah, so if you go down, it's basically go down the hall over here, and it's the piece on the right before you get to the end of the hallway.
So basically across from the auditorium.
Right.
Across the hall.
Yeah, so, but we're not only renovating what's in there, we're also doing a bit more of that musical chairs that's going on here. So, on the right-hand side, you'll see, there's kind of an open, I'm trying to think of what we're calling it. It's not a lobby, but it's like kind of an open common space where there'll be, we talked about the kind of furnishings that they want to have in there in terms of like tables where kids can play games and some soft seating. There's I believe it's a psychologist's office, and then there's also a classroom that's included as part of that. Off to the left, you can see there's an area that does not have a door. We're also creating kind of, I think Rachel had called it a meditative space. So we kind of have, it's similar to what's happening in the PPS and Flex space in the middle school where there's no door. It's an observed space, but it's somewhere where we'll have either beanbag chairs or some really comfortable seating where people can just kind of take some time to themselves.
Kind of a down tempo sensory.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's small enough for 1 or 2 people, really, really simple. What we've done with the rest of the space, so currently the way that this is organized, there are a lot of rooms that take up way too much space for what they need. And so we've tried to kind of like tighten it up a little bit, give the office what it needs and the front room what it needs. And what's left at the top, you can see is a resource room. So the resource room, I believe, is moving from the space on the left, which is 103. So we're moving that room into, I'm sorry, maybe the resource is coming from somewhere else. There are a few of them happening. So that is a kind of a small group work classroom. And then what's going to happen on the space in 103 on the left is that will become the new custodial space. Because you will see later, we are taking over the custodial space for the new renovations to the music and auditorium. So what we've done here is we've kind of like tried to fit all those little pieces of the puzzle in. And even in the bottom left-hand corner next to the Flex space, you can see we have a small box office for the auditorium now. The reason you don't see a window there is because it is so small. We have a similar like a Dutch door idea. Like at the top, someone can come in and you can actually be able to distribute some tickets from there. So really a nice location, assuming, you know, everyone's coming in that door, going to performance, and it's right there on the side.
And I think the folks that use the auditorium most were excited because this was actually a wish list item. They said,
Okay. We were like, we don't think we can do
would love that a lot.
it.
So we think we can make it happen.
So we'll fit that then, yes.
So the custodial space for it was a resource room, was the nurses.
Uh-huh.
So does that have water and other facilities? And
Yeah.
maybe a use of custodian?
Yeah, so
Even
that's
though-
one of the reasons we chose this, and we had conversations with the staff here. It's set up for what they need already, which is great. We don't have to do new plumbing and, you know, so that'll be really helpful.
What is the tea room?
A toilet, probably.
Oh,
Yeah. Those are actually should be gray. We're not touching that. That's just staying.
so yeah.
So that's all what was in that room,
Yeah.
because when it was the nurse's office, it had
Yeah, exactly.
toilet and it had
Exactly.
water and it had other things.
Okay. Next space is the video production. So, in order for us to do the extension to the cafeteria, we're taking over the spaces that are kind of behind the existing cafeteria right now, which house all of these a little bit disparate spaces that have the editing room, the video production, the live studio, and a very small booth to go along with that. So what we've done is we've had some long conversations with Laura about what spaces we can kind of massage. And this is upstairs. So if you go up the stairs, it's just right above here.
Directly behind the balcony.
Yeah,
Across
so
the hallway
behind,
from the
across the
balcony.
hallway from the balcony of the auditorium. And instead of having multiple, yeah, it's currently the testing center, correct? Yeah. So we will be moving the use of the testing center into one of the adjacent rooms because they don't need to take up that much space. And then what we've done here is we've finally been able to kind of combine those disparate spaces for the video production into one suite for them, allowing us to kind of create a soundproof area. They can have everything where they need it, and have those spaces work together. Another benefit of that is that we've been able to give them a bigger booth in the center. So one of the discussions we had with the teacher for these programs was that he can only fit comfortably maybe 3 or 4 people in that space when he needs to fit 8 to 12. Because it's really nice to be able to use that space as a teaching space as opposed to having to do, can I have the whole class in there or do I have to do it in 3 rounds? So that will really help the program. So
So
This-
Sarah, the organization of the proposed layout here, the left side is the
is the live filming
live
room.
film room.
Yep.
So those triangle objects you see are actually just camera.
Mhm.
perspectives
Yeah, right,
of 3 different stations.
Yeah.
There's the control booth
in the center.
in the middle
Yep.
and the production room, all space always. to the right.
Yes, and that's where they do like the editing and the students have all their headphones and they do their music and everything, so. Yeah, so it should turn out to be a pretty nice space there. Of course, we're gonna have to black out the windows because they'll need that, but that'll be part of the deal.
Where is that in the building?
So that's right up in the upper corner here. It's the testing center, and I believe, so the resource is the one that's where, so you see there's a fireplace there? That's the resource center that's going down here.
So it's-
Oh, so,
Yeah.
so that's gonna be.
That's the one that's going
That's,
down,
what-
yeah.
so it's the testing center and that, at some corner of the second
Yes,
floor
yeah.
across from the balcony entrance.
Exactly. So when you come up the stairs here, it's immediately on your left. Next, we come to the auditorium and the music suite. So really, this piece of the project is gonna be a really lovely showcase for the high school once it's finished. In general, we're doing mostly an kind of interior facelift and renovation, trying to bring the auditorium back to kind of its original glory, adding a little bit of flavor to it, kind of definitely lighting, paint, curtains, all of those things. But in addition, we've also layered in a renovation to the stage. And we've had a lot of discussions about this, and we're going to be extending the stage a bit and try to work in some movable platforms. So what that would allow is making, you'd be able to have some risers in the front. You can have the stage in the front all the way down. You can have it all the way up to make the stage extend a little bit further, because there's quite a bit of space between the stage and the front row of seats. And what doing that also allows us is to put, you can see there's a little line towards the back of the stage, is to put a crossover back there. Currently, there's really no easy way for students to kind of get around, other than going downstairs and coming back up, which is always a rush, I imagine. And it'll be much easier for them to be able to use that in the back there. We're also doing, the seats are gonna stay because those are relatively new and in good condition, but we're going to be doing kind of new flooring for the rest of the room, as well as a whole layer of lighting, AV, what am I missing? Lighting, AV, sound, everything. Yeah, so.
Flies,
House lighting.
Yeah,
Flies.
yeah.
No,
Yeah, so
no.
we'll show-
fly space?
No, those are flies.
Right, right.
So no major physical adjustment to the room. We're really living within the 4 walls,
Yeah.
but the idea is let's optimize what you have. It's a beautiful auditorium. It has a ton of character. It's gonna celebrate its centennial next year. And
Whole building.
it is all building.
Whole building.
Whole building, yeah. So as Sarah said, bring it back to its original glory and position it for the future, right? So put systems in, they're easy to operate, effective. We've talked about this idea of the Dread Pirate Roberts thing, where you you pass on the knowledge of how to operate these very difficult sound systems from one student to the next, and yeah, generationally. So we want to make this easy to operate, easy to learn, and one of the features of the project will be expanding the control area in the balcony. So oversizing it. So the same concept with the video production room and control room is make space where students can be to learn and watch. So you can have some students watch older students and say, oh, I see how you're doing the sound system. I'd love to try that at the next show, or just gain some experience by being there. So that's a big change actually to the control room.
Yeah, and a big part of our conversations with the consultants for AV and for sound and everything is that we do want to have the complexity we need for the shows, but at the same time, people coming in that don't have the knowledge of how to use that will have options to be able to say switch on, switch off. If it's just a film or if it's just a Board of Ed meeting or something where you don't have the expertise that they have for the shows, we'll still be able to have that option. As well as being able to connect, very importantly, the sound booth with the kind of music areas on the side, which are used during the show. Right now, I understand there's an actual Google Meet that has to happen for them to be able to see what's going on the stage. So we want to eliminate that and be able to have a direct connection so they know what's happening on the stage when they're not there.
So, couple of questions about stairs and lifts. I know a lot of places currently with a movable, or I think, productions use the center aisle and have actors go up to the stage that way, which at the moment would be underneath the movable or removable stage platform.
Right.
So thinking of stage productions and maximum flexibility, I'm wondering how that's been thought about. Second question is, you have on the side, each side has a stair, which I know they use, but they're not shown as at the same point. The one on the left is with the movable, and the one on the right is at the actual stage, because below that, there is a lift, which I'm wondering what, third question, the purpose of the lift and how that fits in to either, is it for theater production reasons, or is it for?
The lift is for accessibility. So currently you have a mobile lift that can be used, that can be brought in to service the stage. I think the expectation for the stage going forward will be permanent accessibility. So an audience member, and the kind of performance requirement is somebody from the audience can come and get on the stage without an exceptional route, so that they don't go outside the building.
That's an ADA kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're looking for a permanent location for a lift. With regard to the stairs, the approach to the stairs can be the same, where they're movable. The lift, the portion of the stage that can go up and down, will get a permanent installation that will lay flat in the floor when it's in the down position.
So you can put the movable stairs on the side.
Stairs can just slide right on top of it
For
and
the-
go right to the stage. So
Okay.
that solution will remain the same, but I think the solution with the lift will have to be a permanent installation.
Does the movable piece work? Was there like an orchestra pit discussion at
that's-
some point? Is
there-
that meant for that?
Yeah, there was an orchestra pit discussion. For the record, there will not be a pit. We're not doing any recessing of the floor, other than enough to put that platform in the ground. So we'll chip out a little bit of the concrete. That's actually like a scissor platform. So it jacks up, comes up, you can jack back down and lay flat. Having the flexibility with the depths of the stage actually will accommodate some music where it's very difficult to accommodate all the players on the stage at once. And it will give you some flexibility. So if there is a performance that does want to have a pit, so to speak, or students up in front of the stage, you can lower it with whatever's happening on the stage. So you have, the idea here is to create as much flexibility as possible within the limitations of the space.
So those will be actual permanent structures, but recessed into the concrete so that when they're not being used, they are down. When a stair needs to be put, wherever it needs to be put, it can be put there.
And you said it'll be movable in a way that it could be like stepped up and.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to do, is to do this in a way that we can basically create risers.
Mhm.
But I don't know that we have kind of proof of concept on that piece of it just yet.
In that regard, I was wondering if each of the 12 panels are independent. Right, it might be that a particular performance wants a wing on the left and a wing on the right and the opening in the middle, and if that can be done so that it helps the theatrical direction.
Yeah.
Or are you envisioning that each row is gonna lift or not lift?
I'm doing the calculation in my head about the difficulty of cranking up 12 different ones in different places. And I'm wondering where I need to hide. from the That's the.
Supposedly it's easy, right? That's what they
But
say.
if
So I
you
think-
ask them and they want it, then they're the
Yes,
ones that are.
That's
they're not
exactly right. So
calling-
it's
they're not
just a
calling
balance
music for it.
of, you know, do we want to make it overly complicated or make it easy?
Okay.
So one of the things I heard from the kids that I know on the stage crew is that they have historically had a concern about the safety of the battens above the stage. And that they're basically not counterbalanced flies. This is something that is raising them and lowering them is essentially not a possibility, and they end up working on ladders as a result quite a bit to work on them. And I was wondering if anything is being done to alleviate that problem. I understand, no, we're not going to be adding lots of fly space, as much as I would love it. But if anything can be done to resolve that issue, if it's a matter of
There's that, yeah.
Go ahead, you go.
Yeah, so this might help a little bit. This is just the kind of plan for the, I guess, on the.
Yeah.
The one in the middle is the lighting plan and the one on the right is the rigging plan. So, and I believe the discussion for the rigging was that they would be able to be lowered and raised.
okay.
So that you don't have these high ladder issues.
Mhm.
We're also working on, if you can see in the section on the left, you do have currently, I believe, 2 existing light poles on the side. We're gonna add another one, but we're talking about trying to stabilize those more, make them a lot easier to access and make them stronger. Yeah, exactly.
The light bars on the sidewall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna be introduced as, I think our consultant referred to them as ladder type, so they're actually a lot easier to get on. And safer to work from or be around. There are a lot more grab points, there are safer places to put your feet and so forth. So the idea is to make.
Safety harms.
Yeah, exactly, make them a lot easier to work on.
And the ones above the stage would be, I guess, motorized or
I don't,
either motorized, that'd be either motorized or counterbalanced, right?
yeah, I think,
And they can go up and down, right?
yeah. I think those go up and down.
Yeah, no, they should be.
Yeah.
Need to.
And so, since Josh mentioned, will there be more flies? What I'm wondering about, and maybe this is what he's talking about, is I know in some productions you have scenery that's up and then
That's exactly what I was
That's-
talking
that's
about.
fly.
Yeah, but that requires basically raising the roof
sure,
to
okay.
twice the height that it currently
Right,
is.
so Okay, I just want, I want to make sure that we were talking about the same thing.
So just in the vein of next steps, one of the things that I think just happened this week was we had the auditorium laser scan. So we had LiDAR, radar. Because we were unable to find those drawings from 99 years ago. We have some rough dimensions of the space, but
Neil doesn't
Did
have
you
those?
check with me?
Just, I will tell you, Tracy, that we have an appointment, week after next. Go into the tombs, into the archives.
Okay.
To look
To look for
at
it.
stuff.
Oh, wow.
If we come across,
Give you a list.
well, the good news is we now have a
Okay.
very accurate 3D laser scan of the space. And actually, the theater consultants were waiting for that information because it has to do with exactly what we're talking about, positioning the light bars and how they're gonna work together with the views from the balconies and so forth. So Now that we have that information inbound, so to speak, there's gonna be a little more development on the exact positioning and arrangement of the light and sound components.
So I have a question about the space, about space like behind the stage and then to the sides, because I also have some friends on stage crew who are really concerned, like as it is, there's like barely any space for all those big props that get wheeled on and off. Like I tripped over stuff so many times back there. Like it's actually really painful sometimes, but I guess my question is for those like big props and stuff, where exactly are they gonna go?
So we're not adding any space to the auditorium and we're really not. I think we did hear a request for more storage space, but we are not gonna add to the footprint. So we know that that's a concern, and quite frankly, it is a concern in every auditorium we've ever worked in. I will say, you know, yours is very intimate. Not a ton of storage space, but the fact of the matter is we are not gonna be able to create a new storage space. And we also looked at adding some space off the back to create that circulation, but it just really wasn't feasible with the depth of the parking lots.
So I guess in terms of, I think you're talking about storage space had during a production,
Yeah.
when you've got a large prop and
Yeah,
you have to kind of put it in that corner or that corner and, you know, just kind of be able to have stage crew get it out onto the stage when there's a scene change in the dark. And that's something that we just, I guess, sounds like really can't do a
Yeah.
lot for.
yeah, the wing space is very limited.
Yeah.
However, those movable platforms, that's to extend the stage, right, to make it bigger, so.
It's possible they could use that. You could have that.
Move the curtain up, right, and then you have more
Exactly.
space in the back.
Absolutely.
So that I guess raises the question, the curtain presently is about where you see the stair actually the lift on the left. Or maybe a little further back.
Yes, it's just behind those sort of bumps.
Those little-
that make
Yeah,
up
bumps.
The proscenium arch.
Right, so are we, and we're not talking about
I think
changing
this,
the curtain.
I think in this case, it would be an intermediate
Mm.
curtain that would be, you know, set forward from the back just a little bit, maybe 5 or 6 feet that can be dropped down.
Okay, but then the curtain that is now there would be at that same,
The
that same
main,
line we're talking.
main curtain should say.
Okay.
We're also, part of it is that we're going to be moving the screen for the projector up to that area where the curtain is.
Mhm.
So you won't have that kind of depth and
Right.
shadow on that screen
Good.
anymore and be able to.
Is there something that will allow for a different kind of projection? And this is because I'm thinking the last time we were there and whichever presentation it was, right, somebody had what I'll call the slide projector and it was on there and it's very.
I think that was me.
Will there be something perhaps that can be, you know, tied into our
Yes.
media so that.
The simple answer is yes, we're gonna upgrade the video projection. We want it to be set up so it looks like a movie house, right? So the curtains will be behind the screen will come down from behind the valance. And then we'll hide away when it's done, but then you don't see anything in the back of the stage when the screen's down.
And I guess the projector's like front of balcony.
Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah,
the
we
location.
just actually had a long table talk the other day with the consultants, and the conversation currently is front of balcony versus back up in the booth and
Mhm.
creating a better projection booth there that will also include the racks for the AV equipment and everything kind of in one place, keeping it cooled so that it doesn't overheat and all that, so.
Protected from
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
the folks sitting in the balcony.
Right, and also, yeah, the idea of putting it on the front of balcony is great, because you get the position and there's no one in front of it. But then you're talking about messing with the character of the space, right?
Right.
You need to enclose it, you need to put it on something, so, we're trying to see if we can do it with it at the least
Just means the
invasive.
throw is gonna be larger,
Different.
longer, which means you're gonna
Right.
need a
More powerful.
bigger, more
Yeah.
powerful projector and so on. Understood.
Right.
Got it.
So, yeah, okay, so, I just wanted to quickly talk about the music space.
Yeah.
This plan, did you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna point exactly what I think you're gonna say about the custodian space and increased
Yeah,
storage.
exactly. So, On the right side of the image, you see the music room, which actually has not changed in size. So we're not really doing anything to that space other than taking out all the risers, which is very important. Which will open up the space a lot, give us more ceiling height and make it feel more usable. The large instruments, of course, will remain in that room that can't be moved. But if you look to the north of that room, up on the upper level, what used to be the custodian space, since we've moved them out, has now become storage space. So it's going to be air conditioned and humidity controlled instrument storage, as well as storage for other things that we need from. But just the music program alone has quite a bit of storage needs, because they do a lot of that within the classroom itself. And the idea now is that we'd like to clear that out. Give them the space.
So that suite of spaces, the two rooms on the left and the storage room will also function as practice spaces. So the two rooms on the left would be suitable for one or two persons, depending on what you're playing. And the room on the right would be instrument storage, but it also could work as a little practice space for 3 or 4 people.
That is our music room right now. So,
Like you may have seen this before,
Yeah.
but this is really showing the elimination of the risers, moving the instrument storage out of the space and a new acoustic ceiling. So we are aware that sound travels out of that music room frequently. It's always a nice sound, but providing some level of control within that space.
Are you in this one, Steve?
Now, anything involving music.
oh, that's not true. I think you were playing the guitar in the other one, though, right?
He was playing the guitar, and have you seen him in Greater Hollywood?
It's a little late in the evening.
Yeah.
Circle back to
Cue the Titanic music.
that.
Okay. So next we come to our science portion of the discussion. Do you wanna take a run through?
Sure, we've taken a look at, and met with all the science teachers and talked about their rooms and what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And we've, we tried to, again, optimize the space. This particular room that we're seeing, we have some inspirational images on the left-hand side, and the room itself is actually, in this room is in very good shape. You had recently put in the sinks in the back of the room and the cabinets in the back of the room, I think within the last year or so. And so after all of our conversations with this instructor, we found that what really we needed to do was just kind of replace a little bit of storage on the side and provide some whiteboard space for them, and kind of just change the doors to the closets so that you can you could actually teach from more than just the front of the room. You could teach from all different places in that room. And we provided some extras, new furniture, some extra storage cabinets.
So what room number is this?
This is 204.
Okay.
And so I think there are 4 or 5 classrooms that we have shown here, but there are also other rooms that we're also doing similar things. We're doing floor replacements and ceiling replacements in all of the ones that you'll see, as well as some of the other rooms on the 3rd floor.
But this particular room already has like a good ceiling and.
This is one of the newer, the ones that were built about 15 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's.
Right. The ones on the,
Maybe even.
yeah, it was
maybe-
before I came on the board, but just barely.
Right, and this next plan is the biology and research room, and similar to all the science spaces, we're providing, like Sarah said, the new flooring and new lighting in these spaces. We're looking at some enhancements, like perhaps some acoustic, they call them blades, hanging down from the ceiling. You can add some color and some life to the space and give it a little different feel, a nice refresh in the room. And we've, a lot of the discussion, because the footprint isn't changing with the science rooms, was really just how they're organized. So that's really what's changed with these spaces. We've tried to open them up, provide a little bit more flexibility for the space, still give them perimeter type of storage, and kind of separate our lecture and lab space so that you can get most of the open floor space as possible. We're even talking about, you know, the use of maybe some mobile monitors in there as opposed to having everything fixed to the wall. When you have the windows on one wall and the casework on the other, it starts getting a little tricky as to where you're really going to put those monitors.
Thinking about that, because it's used for science research. I mean, science research is a lot of work by students who are reading, who are, you know, communicating with their mentors. They're not really so much doing work, but it's also biology room, so obviously it's gotta be ready for biology. Has, I assume the answer is yes, but you have to do our due diligence. As Mr. Keen, science research teacher, who has told us that he expects that program to be expanding, has he ensured that what is needed for science research, mobile monitors being part of it, is what he's got?
So I think that the short answer to is yes. I mean, we've talked at great length about the future of the science program. I would say there's been some very healthy discussion regarding that and how science instruction may or may not change moving forward. But I think the short answer to that is yes. I mean,
Yeah.
we've accommodated.
I'm just thinking
concerns.
science research, which is the
Yeah,
independent work of students,
Yeah.
is not done in the classroom.
right.
It's done, you know, wherever they're.
Yeah, and I think his,
Right,
his,
that's
some of
fine.
his notes on that were that you can see there's like a printer noted up there. He's
Mhm.
taking that with him from the previous room.
Right.
So a lot of the work is done digitally. And then there's also a space that you'll see later, which is kind of like the STEAM lab, which is gonna be a very flexible space, which can potentially be used for all of the different classes and types. So,
And that STEAM laboratory is in addition to room 200A and 200B, the
Yes.
two.
And again, this is another one of the science rooms and it's basically just been kind of reorganized and it's going to get a real refresh in the space. When you walk in now, you've got the door and I don't know if you remember the room, it's got a lot of maps hanging from above it and it gives it a little character, but we're gonna straighten that out and again, kind of create this lab area on one side and a very open area with a lot of counter space and storage on the other side. So that whatever furniture is that they ultimately decide on, they can have some flexibility in that space and still maintain, you know, the windows where they are, and you still have a wall there for monitor and teaching.
So since that's the chemistry room, I know a lot of work they will do is with things like Bunsen burners and stuff like that, which I know I had seen they did that all at each of their stations, and the gas. I think was part of that. Is that still there or is that?
in
gonna be
this room,
operating?
we're keeping it, yes. So this room currently has one of those octagon sinks that the gas is coming into that. We're gonna relocate it to the lab stations as needed.
Okay,
And that may be the only room that we're keeping the gas. in.
That's happening in the fixed location. so it's
Yes,
not-
yeah,
Right,
right.
it's not, the expectations, that's not happening.
yeah, not on those.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be exciting, but probably not safe.
No, I understand. I guess knowing this teacher, as long as he's there, he's gonna need enough wall space that he can show the periodic table. Because he loves the periodic table.
Yeah.
Oh, it's another teacher. Oh, okay, it's not, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all right. Maybe this teacher loves periodic table.
We'll be sure to leave space just in case.
Yes, sir.
I know we're not talking furniture yet, but demo desks are very sage on a stage.
They were talking about mobile desks, and there's been a lot of discussion about what that desk should really look like. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so each room has a bit of a different layout and we're kind of testing out these ideas with everyone and, you know, the teachers have seen them, but oftentimes they're asking for the mobile desks now because the ones that are kind of heavy and in place are difficult.
Depends on what you're doing with.
But
Yeah.
when we come to physics, it's a completely different story. So we've had, again, conversations with physics teacher, right? And so,
Right,
Yeah.
right. So in the physics room, if you're familiar with it, they have some like very large tables with a lot of stuff in them. And a lot of our strategy with physics was to not only refresh the room, but try to organize the room a little bit better. And we came up with a couple of different plans. We went through different ways we could do that, creating big storage rooms, and we went back and forth. And what it kind of came down to was the thought was that the best way to organize it is really to provide some open storage on the back with adjustable shelves so that all the big pieces that are currently laying all over the tables have a home to live in that space. And the physics teacher actually says the layout of the lab and the lecture actually works really well right now, and they don't really see a reason to being here. So we'll be updating the lighting, and we'll bring new flooring in there and cleaning it up a bit. But this room, of all the science rooms, is staying a little bit more in the same position. You know, all the cabinets and stuff are staying in more of the same position as it is right now. And there's our steam room.
The steam lab.
Right. And in this room, what we've done is we've created it. You walk in and you've created a nice space off to the left where we can have we're calling it a fabrication room right now. The program is still kind of open. It's not quite defined. So what we've done is just kind of gone off of some other spaces that we've done like this in the past. And what we have is we have a glass wall from the fabrication lab into the steam lab. And that way, if you have some digital, certain printers or things that you want to put there and you want people to see them, you can have access to them. And then we're taking this little room, which is it used to be the old chemical storage room, I think. That little room down on the left in the corner. And that room we also thought could be used as a printer room if you have something that needs some exhaust, or we need to separate, or noisy or something like that. We'd set something up in there. And the rest of the space is fairly open. We provided a sink because most spaces like this, you need some type of a sink. A lot of perimeter storage along the side and the front wall there. And the rest is really left open. So you have plenty of counter space along that perimeter for however your program develops. And I expect for this room, we'll see a few changes in this room as everybody starts really thinking about what it is they want to do in that room, or what type of equipment you might have.
So this room in particular, because I see fabrication room, will there be a necessity for additional and more powerful ventilation and fume removal, et cetera?
Depends on the equipment that ends up
Right.
being, envisioned for that space. There are some, we talk about 3D printers. There are some kind of tabletop versions that have minimal ventilation requirements. There are some that are a little more intense. Laser cutters, things like that require more intense.
Yeah, I was
ventilation.
thinking more of the fabrication room because they're doing things that involve constructing and could be.
But do we have the flexibility? If that is the case, do we have
So
flexibility?
the
to
original
reduce that
conversation
ventilation?
was centered only on that 3D printer closet. And air conditioning that, obviously, to make sure that everything's and ventilating that properly. But as we've had discussions with everyone, we've decided that for now we're gonna try and figure out how we can include that fabrication space, because we know that in the future there may be that issue, so it'll be on the same system.
One comment I would say on this is that I think the door to that 3D printer room needs to open the other way. Outward, not inward. Because I think opening inward, it's gonna take up that's gonna take a lot of space. And I was thinking, if you're talking about sort of like a CNC machine or laser cutter, or plasma cutter, plasma table, that has significant ventilation. And it's not just a matter of having it air conditioned, it's a matter of having negative pressure in that room, right? So that those fumes don't end up in the rest of the space.
Cafeteria. You want to talk about it a little?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. So, this is a plan of the proposed cafeteria. You'll notice on the bottom left is the upper right is the space that currently houses video production, sound production spaces. So we're essentially doubling the footprint of the cafeteria. There's a target seating capacity somewhere around 200 in total space, a little bit less, remains to be seen. The idea is we're providing different types of seating throughout, so varied kind of seating arrangements. There are large tables, small tables, soft seating spaces for individuals. There are some areas that'll feel more like a cafe and some areas that feel more like a cafeteria. We are currently in the process of diving deeper into what the servery and kitchen components are going to be and evaluating some options on that. So what we're considering is the level to which we'll do on-site food preparation and relieve some of that from the PVC kitchen. And then talking about how we serve or how food will be served that may feel more like stations than certainly not a serving line and what that could look like and how that works with point of sale systems, et cetera. So a number of options are being considered right now for how the kitchen serving area comes together. But generally speaking, we think it's going to lie somewhere on the kind of where that you said heavy horizontal wall, kind of in the middle of the drawing, just above that, in the renovated space. And then we're talking about introducing a coffee bar in the existing cafeteria. So the idea is that during lunch period, there's all kinds of things happening in the cafeteria, but we want to make the space usable and attractive when it's not lunch, when it's not a meal service, so that it could be a space to do homework, it could be a space for a class to meet, it could be a space for a club to meet, it could be a space for any type of group activity, it can be a little performance. So that the existing cafeteria will start to have a vibe, not quite like a Starbucks, but maybe a little bit more like a coffee shop where you could hang out and feel comfortable being in there. And that the spaces could be separated when it's on a lunch period, so to speak. So there is a firewall that we're gonna have to maintain, the vertical separation between the two spaces of the corner of the heavy wall. We're gonna have fire doors that can be on hold opens or they can be closed. So you can effectively use it as one big space or break it down into smaller spaces. So the images on the right are some inspirational images. You'll see different types of seating. One of the features we really think found to be popular is a counter. What makes counters great is you can sit as an individual, you can do a little bit of work. Maybe you're not comfortable sitting at a table with 12 people, or you know, 12 people my size are kind of taking up all the space, so I'm just gonna be by yourself. It's a place that is multifunction, it's destigmatized, if you're just one or two people. It kind of breaks down some of the social structures or issues that we see when we have monolithic large tables. So that has been a very popular feature in some cafeterias, and we're looking at that kind of in the vicinity of the servery and maybe some of the cafe spaces as well.
You see booth spaces too?
You see booth spaces.
We have a little of everything in this one, so. The plan is developing with the kitchen plan as well, and so obviously the seating's gonna move around. But we are looking at, and the reason we put this in there is to give options, to get reactions, see how people feel about it. But one thing that we're definitely trying to do, even when we do kind of get that full kitchen flushed out in the servery, is to keep the windows to the courtyard open. So we're kind of showing seating along there now to really just make sure that we're maximizing the light into that space. The ceilings in there are not quite as high as we get in the other half. So we want to make sure that that feels like welcoming, so that people want to sit there and they want to be there.
So we are working on the right side of the plan still in terms of where the server is going to live, how kitchen footprint is going to live in that space. But we have done a little bit of work, conceptual work on the existing cafeteria. So this is a design image of your existing space, if you can imagine that, with a coffee bar. So to orient you, we would, on the left side would be where we currently have refrigerators in the cafeteria. So if we went and stood at the existing servery counter and looked back across the auditorium, the servery would be kind of at our back, the existing serving space. And we're looking out to the left where there's some refrigerators, maybe microwaves, and then our windows towards the field on the right. So what we see here is we see some booth seating in the background, some table seating in the front, and then a counter of sorts on the left, which, you know, to what length we go to make it a coffee bar, is to be determined, but there's some options there relative to who runs it. It could be student run. In that case, we'd want the equipment to be very simple, kind of, almost instant coffee. Or it could be run through food service, which maybe has a little bit different implication with the type of equipment that's there. But the idea is, by introducing something as simple as a coffee bar, we energize this space throughout the day, right? It's also becomes really fun, yeah, literally. But now it becomes something that's much more attractive, in the mornings, evenings.
I've never heard of a coffee bar in a school before. Is that like part of our food service? Is that allowed? Yes.
So I would,
I thought the same thing at first.
so I would.
Do you wanna get involved?
Maybe a beverage bar would be a better term, right? So like, I know when my daughter goes to Starbucks, she gets the pink drink, which is,
Yeah.
it's just.
I
But like,
know.
I think there might be a lot of other offerings.
It's also, it also should be
Consider they're all going
flexible.
down to the Black Cow anyway.
Well, no, for sure, for sure.
But they can get coffee, you can get coffee now at the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's really gonna be a snack bar, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and the ability to use this as kind of a smaller service area when they do want to close off the other half will be a benefit as well, but no large crowd here.
So one question, I know I've asked this in the past. You show in the courtyard, right, go back to the previous slide, you
Some
are
outdoor
showing
seating.
in the upper left-hand corner, outdoor seating. And you show, and I know we talked about this before, some kind of a shading for that outdoor seating. And my concern, I mentioned at the time, and I'll say it again, is access for fire and access for emergency egress from
Yes, from the.
those windows
Yeah.
that are above that. And that's, I am concerned that if that's got, some kind of a shading, like we talked about at CT, something like that, what ends up, I'm concerned about the ability of the fire department to be able to get to where they need to get to.
Yeah. Understood. We're not gonna interfere with the
Yeah,
egress requirements of the above. So it'll probably come down to orientation of that canopy to ensure that a ladder can be put up to, they're labeled rescue windows. The idea
Right.
is someone comes in and gets you out of the window. And certainly we can't have a canopy in the way of that.
I know we designed it in such a way that vehicles can get in there, including emergency vehicles. But you're not gonna get a ladder truck in there. So,
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get a ladder truck in there.
right, so the ladders you're talking about.
But a ladder, physical ladder.
You're talking about a physical
Yeah.
ladder that,
Yeah.
will have to come off an engine company to go up there, and it has to be, go up to the third floor.
I just wanted to, going back to the coffee bar, I just wanted to give a shout out. If you guys are wondering, like, where did that idea come from? I was at like the meeting where we were talking about this, and there was another student. It was Ellie Ropa, and she just like suddenly came out with this whole idea, and it was really cool. And that's like where it originally came from, a student. So, well, a lot of it, the inspiration, I'm not sure exactly who did what, but yeah. So in case you're wondering, like, who thought of that?
Well, that brings up a good point too, because we've had some really, really great comments from students. And so we're trying to incorporate as well. So one of the things we're trying to do in here, you can see it more in the plan a bit, is up in the left-hand corner of the existing space, we're putting some kind of window seating in there. They were saying how at times when the cafeteria is full, they're sitting on these like very, very narrow windowsills, just trying to get comfortable and trying to find a space for themselves. But like, why not expand those and make them actual seats and something kind of nice to sit in? So bravo.
All right.
Big space.
So this is the second floor innovative learning center. And again, a very exciting component of the proposed project. And we've spent quite a bit of time in engagement with stakeholders at the high school talking about this project. And if you remember, the concept of this is to renovate what is currently a traditional classroom wing into an innovative learning center. So in a lot of ways, the plan looks pretty similar, right? We see delineation in plan of 5 or 6 specific learning spaces, But the concept here is to provide as much flexibility as possible to provide different types of learning environments. So what does that mean? It means flexible walls, movable walls. It means furniture types. So providing different modalities of meeting, of working, of coming together, to collaborating in a way that can support curriculum for up to 5 or 6 classes at once. And do it in a way that they can work independently, work together, or some of them together, some of them independently. So the trick in developing this concept is to balance separate spaces with the way to integrate all those spaces together at once. So in plan, the proposed concept includes a teacher station in the upper left. So this is a dedicated teacher workroom where teachers can work quietly or jointly together. And then the upper right is a presentation meeting area. And then we have a series of class workspaces as we move down the page. There is a loose corridor space. It's not defined by walls in every area, but you can see it kind of curving through the room. The idea is this will no longer be a pass-through space. So now that the cafeteria has moved towards the front of the building, there isn't a need to get to that back stairwell, get down to the cafeteria for a direct entrance. So we anticipate more students to enter in go down the front stair and restrict pass-through, but we still have it delineated for egress purposes. So that if you're in the space, it becomes very obvious kind of how to get out from one room to the corridor. And then on the left, you'll see some inspiration images that we've been using to talk to the group about. The top left one is a project in Hampshire that includes movable walls, breakout collaboration rooms. The walls that are facing the camera are clear, they can move. And then walls delineating the 2 rooms are movable, but are opaque, and they can be whiteboards or tack boards or writable surface, teachable surface, or open up and completely disappear. On the right, upper right, we see some kind of circulation and collaboration space on the left. The bottom left illustrates a kind of a gathering zone outside of different classroom spaces. And then the right, I think we were talking about accent ceilings to highlight circulation paths through this zone. So we go to the next slide. So we actually have a little video here that Bella worked on and put together. So this is the kind of meeting presentation zone space as you walk in. A different collaboration area that is open and adjacent to a classroom, which the walls can open up on this classroom. So that on stacked against the wall, we see an operable partition. And then as we move through the space, we have some smaller group spaces on the left and another large kind of classroom space on the right that can all open up to each other. And then this is more like a seminar style room, which can open up to the room to the left or the room right behind us. So lots of flexibility, lots of different meeting types, space types. Can we go to the next one? So these are just some stills. So just revisiting some of the spaces we saw in the video. This is our presentation and meeting space. So the idea is this of a focal wall, some soft seating, or enough the students, let's say it's the class size to meet there. Next one. This is more of an open workspace. So the idea is you can work quietly, individually, or maybe in groups of 2, small groups, to do project-based work outside of a class environment. And then this is more of a traditional classroom environment. So with operable partitions that can open up to the space we saw in the previous slide or the adjacent classroom space. So again, this is sized for a full class of students and has more traditional teaching walls and technology. And then our slightly smaller size room, which is more of a seminar style space, again, with some flexible furniture, but similar to, I think, the space that's currently in the high school library, if you envision that with technology on the wall.
And the wall here along the left would also be movable.
Yes, and the idea is that one is transparent, but it has the opaque features that could be tactable or writable.
Right.
All right, so again, I just want to thank Bella for all her.
Yeah.
Nice job.
And what's exciting to us is we are working on a program called Revit, and we can create these really cool images and videos, but we can also put Oculus goggles on and walk through the space. So we're excited to share some of those walkthrough features.
Did we get
Some of our next-
Yeah.
That was a session.
So we talked about this a little bit, the wall solution, right, being a critical part of this, and that
Yes.
we need something that addresses acoustics and can be movable by faculty and not custodial team members, right? So we've
Yeah.
found something that's,
We think so.
yeah, okay.
And I guess looking at the plan, at least what we got last night, that's what I'm looking at, I see a couple of, I guess we'll have to like learn a little bit more, but some walls appear to be pretty much permanent. And some are open to flexibility. I guess my question, right, because we'll learn that, is thinking about, and this is really for Steve and John and Laura and whoever else, thinking about the classes, how this space will be used and by whom.
Mhm.
And I know we talked months ago about, well, there might be a couple of teachers who are basically gonna say, that's where I wanna live for a semester. And use all of the great things here to design my class. But it also seems, the way we were talking about it, that it may be one of those things that would work for a shorter term. Like, okay, sort of the same way as we have, we have, somebody goes to the library or they take their class somewhere. What are you envisioning and high school administration envisioning about how this space
Yeah.
will be used?
So without getting out too far in front of Laura and
Understood.
faculty, I think, what I'm envisioning is that we have a group of faculty members who say, I'm gonna commit to having this be the space in which I work along with several other colleagues, and in doing so, we're as a team committing to interdisciplinary work, collaborative work, and thinking differently about the structure of the learning environment as a team, not just simply as an individual teacher. That's at this point, how I'm envisioning logistically that happens for a longer period of time, not a week or a month, but committing longer term to that. I think they could also look at, is there a space within this that could be signed out on a more regular day-to-day basis? And then have the rest of it be more fixed within that group of 4 or 5 faculty. But again, I would defer that. That's gonna be, there's gonna be a lot of conversations with Laura and the faculty about that.
Because I do recall, Josh, your question, that we talked about before about the appropriateness of the space and how it's gonna work and whether it's the right way to go.
This actually addresses a lot of my concerns because you actually have, it's not just a curtain.
Right.
It's a
Yeah. Oh,
real,
yeah.
it's a real substantial partition. The question that I have about it is, what's it going to cost to maintain it? One of the things about movable partitions is that they will require maintenance, and the better you maintain them, the longer they are going to last, and without requiring significant repair. Which means, it means work for custodial staff. Clear out the cracks and, well, all the things you need to do to lubricate and make sure that these devices remain operable. Because the moment they don't, then it becomes a fixed space again, and we're right back where we started.
Yeah.
Right, so we need to make sure that we account for that,
So I had a quick question just in terms of, because we've seen in some of the other spaces, some of the blades and the like acoustic buffering, is that something that we would also be looking at in some of these spaces as well to help sort of keep some of the sound in the spaces people are in rather than traveling across the whole
So that's always a big challenge, right, with, when we talk about these open collaborative spaces, because there are times we don't want to be quite as collaborative as it's turning out to be, right? So, I think, too, one of the things that we're showing here is that blue partition, which could potentially offer some acoustic separation.
Right, that's a wool felt and that does help a bit, but we are looking at things like we are looking at carpet, having the space carpeted, which will really help. And even though we show a wood ceiling, it would be an acoustic wood ceiling. It wouldn't be, a hard ceiling. And in fact, we were just having the conversation when we were looking through things. We're like, should the other ceilings really be drywall, or should they just be acoustic ceilings with some access panels? And so it's all still kind of under development. But the way that they make these glass partitions now, they do pretty good.
Yeah.
And you do get a better seal with the carpet than you do with a hard floor. So, the only other thing we could do is you can treat the walls, because we've done the floor and the ceiling now, so all it's like it's the walls. You have the windows, so that'll bounce off a little bit, but I think we'll be in pretty good shape here.
And I think we also discussed at one point in some of the meetings that there are gonna be a series of unwritten rules about how the space is used, right?
Yeah.
So if the understanding is these are classrooms, this is not a hangout space, this is not I just come here to do my homework all the time kind of space. So that I think, once it gets in motion, that the students are gonna understand that if I wanna be here and I'm out here and there's a class going on, then there's a certain noise level that is to be kept,
So the other thing that I know, and maybe it's something that teachers did not feel is that important, is space for teachers to have a one-on-one consult with the student as the student is working. Everything is open. And so whether it's by furniture or by something, where if teacher needs or desires some privacy, talk to a student about an issue, that it can be accommodated within this suite. And it may be something they don't care about.
Yeah, I think in fairness, there was quite a bit of discussion about the teacher space itself, and I think at one point in time, there was evaluation of could we have individual offices support that kind of activity, and the reality was to maintain enough space for the number of students we're looking for, that really wasn't possible.
Okay.
So I think the compromise is that teacher space could function, with some cooperation of your colleagues as a space where you could have a more private meeting. So we're pretty excited about this. This is a really forward looking space with a lot of really exciting potential. And there are a lot of things that we need to continue to address: acoustics, operation of these walls, right? And making sure that, because that's critical to making sure ensuring the space works properly. And it will continue to work for many years. But these are all great questions, and we're continuing to work on, so we'll take that into account. So just wanted to briefly remind everybody that there is a component to the entire project that has a focus on health, wellness, and sustainability. I think a number of these features have been previously enumerated, but just wanted to remind everybody that we are doing HVAC improvements, that will have a focus on increased ventilation, filtration, and high efficiency equipment. So where possible, we're using heat pumps, air source heat pumps, and moving as much load as possible to high efficiency electric as opposed to fossil fuels. So in general, we are working to align the project and wherever possible implementation strategies with some of the new initiatives coming out of New York State and rolled out by NYSERDA under Clean Green Schools Initiative, and in support of the governor and proposed legislation to improve school environments. So there's a lot happening that's kind of an undertone to the whole project, but just wanted to remind everybody that that's going on as well.
So in that regard, I know we have a couple of electric vehicle stations at the district office. Is that something that is being considered at this point within this budget? within this plan for each of the schools.
So this
Faculty
particular
parking
plan
areas,
does
etc.
not include the infrastructure for electric vehicle charging at the schools, but it does include infrastructure for vehicle charging and transportation to support the new bus fleet, portion of the new bus fleet. We have talked about it. I don't know that we've identified the implementation strategy for that just yet, but
Yeah, so that may well be if there's money that is available through NYSERDA, et cetera, in general,
yeah.
getting that money, grants or otherwise, and then figure that out.
Getting comment.
It's okay.
Any news from ComEd?
So let me just ask about the infrastructure to support the electric school bus. Because I know that's something that members of the community are very interested in. What specifically is being envisioned within the scope of this project at the transportation facility?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think I heard an inquiry about the status of Con Ed's response. So a lot of this hinges on what Con Ed can tell us about availability of electric power resources at the transportation site itself. So currently, the power that serves that building does not have enough capacity to charge the entire bus fleet. And in fact, it has limited capacity to charge any bus fleet. So at a minimum, we are providing charging for your current electric vehicles and anticipated electric vehicles within the next 5 years. But to upgrade the entirety of the site is going to be fully dependent on what we hear from Con Ed on the availability of power to be extended to the site. And it's possible that cost associated with that may be excessive. So we really just need to get their feedback on what they can bring to the site, any potential costs associated with that. And once we have that, we can make a final determination on the scope there. And it's a little bit of a frustrating answer.
No, but
Welcome to,
it's, you know, it's not,
facilities.
it's not anything that we have not heard before. And, you know, knowing that every district is gonna be calling on their electric supplier to do the same thing, you know,
Yeah.
do it by 2027 or by 2035, you know. So who knows when we'll. get there.
Shall we,
So just next steps on the district-wide capital project, so work at all 3 schools. We are currently in the design development phase, so that's the detailed design of each room. Those 3D models are really helping us get engagement on that, and I think it helps broaden the discussion on some of the specifics. As I mentioned, we're working on material and selections, final layouts of the rooms, food service design at the high school in particular is of importance. And we anticipate completing that as well, that design development phase this summer. And then construction documents this fall with SCD submission for the entire project in fall. With an eye towards commencing construction in the spring of 2024. So broad brush, that's kind of the schedule going forward in the next steps. Next slide. So just wanted to briefly, I know it's getting late, I just briefly want to talk about budget and cost control. So this is an important factor in managing the project. So KG&E and Triton have been very patient. We're really waiting to talk about this. So we work side by side, develop independent estimates, and we bring those estimates together, put all the estimators in the same room. And the idea is we pair the estimates together, to make sure we all see the same thing, that the documents are clear in identifying the scope of work, and then talk about what we think the anticipated cost will be. And we've done this for, Kevin and I personally done this together for 20 years, and it's very beneficial to controlling the cost and understanding what we believe the project will cost on bid day. And the way in which we can control the budget using that tool is then to make informed design decisions. And maximize the value of work we can get out within the budget. So we're currently in the process of developing paired estimates. I think our NASCO is just about to complete our estimate. I think Triton is on the verge of completing theirs as well. Once that happens, we'll reconcile them together, make sure we're on the same page. And if we need to make any adjustments or talk about any scope, we'll come back and we'll make informed decisions together. And then the Spencer field estimate will most likely follow as soon as we get the project to SCD. So SCD right now is like 12 to 16 weeks lead time. We don't have third party review as an option anymore. So we're gonna have plenty of time, once the project gets to SCD, to do an estimate and make any reconciliation if we need to, and go forward from there. So, the next slide. So just want to turn this over to Kevin, to talk a little bit about some of the tools we use to control.
Sure. So first, I just want to say, you know, I'm incredibly impressed with this presentation tonight. Been through a lot of school meetings like this, and what an incredible amount of collaboration and thought that's gone into the design of this thing at this point, only at completing schematic design, pretty impressive. So just want to throw that out there. So a lot of work there, but there's also a lot of other things that are going on too, and Walter had started to mention them. How much does it cost? How long will it take? When will it happen? How do we coordinate it? All the next appropriate conversations that we have to have moving forward, so that we make sure that we don't affect the educational process, minimize disruptions as much as possible. A lot of swing spaces back and forth that we have to coordinate, right? We can renovate this one, if we renovate that one, when we renovate this one. And then you have some larger scale projects and some smaller scale projects. So there's gonna be a lot of conversations about how to do that in the upcoming months with the administrators and the end users and the team. First thing we want to talk about is just the budget aspect of it. Just to remind everybody here, we're at the end of SDs, we're starting up design drawings. There are periods of time that we will provide estimates to help verify that we're keeping on track of what the budget is. We do that independently with the architect who has a company that does it independently also. 2 different sets of eyes looking at the same project to make sure we have a better sense of what the costs are moving forward towards bids. That's very important. Not a lot of people do that. We actually spend a lot of time collaborating and reconciling between our companies to make sure that we really keep the scope, maximize the scope, minimize the price. All right. Here, this is just an example of one section summary of the master budget. This budget will have a half a dozen or more different detail sheets, each tracking each individual project by SED number. So at the end of the day, we'll understand we'll know exactly what the costs are for each final cost report. So we can send that paperwork quickly into the state to get your aid back as soon as possible. These are quite detailed documents. They change all the time depending on new contracts that are awarded, potential change orders that happen. But if the board, if the administration asks us any time for a snapshot of where we think we are overall, we can always give that to you. Okay. So we just wanted to show you an example of some of the details.
So going back to that slide, as we look at these, you've got a budget and the transfer or change in the budget is going to be.
Let's say, for
based
instance,
on how the bids go.
absolutely right.
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, the roofing project comes in $100,000 less than what we had anticipated in the budget. You had $100,000 savings in that particular project. You can transfer that savings into other projects, or you can save it like a pot of money in the vault and to use for future ideas if we have some savings at the end of the day.
Okay, because I mean, I know we have always dealt with change orders. Change orders can save us money or cost us money and can be minor and can be major. Because until you open up the walls, we won't know what's inside some of the walls upstairs. I'm assuming that as we as the board receive information and administration receive information as time goes on, we'll be able to kind of see these summaries, the 6 different sheets that you're talking about, and also be able to see, what change orders are coming in and how all of that is working, because this the major project that we did here in the early 2000s, we were, as a member of the board at that time, I saw, the kinds of things that we received from our architect, the construction manager, and the kind of fights we had with contractors, which we hope we don't. It's another issue.
Well, that's what we're here for,
Good.
right? To fight on your behalf. We will make sure that we clearly identify any change proposals as whether or not that is actually in contract documents or not. Oftentimes what we find, especially when we get further along in the project, some of those are generated by the owner. It could be those change orders that way.
Sure.
We will fairly negotiate any change orders that are not in the scope of work. And then we will clearly document them and keep track of them so that you can see what they are anytime.
So if there is savings, and I'm thinking about the bond resolution, if there are savings that we end up, obviously, we don't have to spend the money, we just have the authority to borrow up to the amount that the voters have permitted us to take out of our reserve, the amount that the voters have permitted. Are there things, how does it work in terms of, I'll call it the wish list that was still there, and what we have the authority to do as time goes on, assuming we have savings?
So the first thing I'd want to do is just take a look at the bond language, just to make sure we're clear about what it is that we went to the community with and said that we would do. There could be parts of a wish list within that information. But if not, there could be some other scope related items within the areas of work that you might want to add in as alternates. Perhaps some equipment or things like that you might want to consider that is not considered now. So there's so many different things. Definitely a conversation moving forward to plan for those opportunities if and when they arrive.
And I just want to say, I asked that question as much for the community to understand that it's not like if there's money's left over, we can decide to put in a swimming pool. We cannot do that because the voters have not allowed us to do that, but we can work together to find out, find the ability to use this money as effectively as possible. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of this was touched on already. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time with this. It's important, I think, for you guys to realize that Triton actually has somebody on site now, the drainage project and the roofing project. All right. So, project schedule, I want to spend, this is really where I want to spend my time and then I'll be done. The red items on the top, that is all right, so maybe I'll just try and explain as best I can, because it is a little hard to see. If you see the little kind of beige sections, those are your summers of 23, 24, and 25 going across the screen. On top, the first two red items is the design and bid of the stormwater project. Below it is the design and bid of the roofing projects. We did put the design package for all the roofing has been done already, but the projects have been separated into two summers, right? The third project, if you will, is what we're talking about, the remaining balance of all the work that you've just gone over tonight. That's the first section there that's in blue. It says design development. There is a little, I don't know if you can see it. There's a red line that sort of indicates going vertically, that indicates where we are today, going into the summer of 23. So you can see the two red boxes of construction is for the drainage project and the roof. The design and development phase has really three parts: SDs, schematics, PDs, design, CDs, construction documents. That whole process of design will take place right through the third week of September. So a lot of time still to collaborate with all those and with all your user groups, get all those furniture and colors and all those things figured out. And then submit to the state, the anticipated time to submit to the state is September 21st, 23. The state review process is rather lengthy. It's not getting any shorter. We anticipate that we should be done with all the approvals by middle of November, middle of January of 24, and then go out to bid for all those projects. Award those projects in somewhere around that February timeline, get those contractors to jump on shop drawings and fabrication of items so that we can get ready to go for the summer of 24. Then, so summer 24, you can see there's 3 boxes there. The top box is the various district-wide alterations, of which there are many. All right, and have we started to figure all that stuff out? No, we've started those conversations. Nothing is set in stone. There's a lot of discussion that has to be made. You have to figure out how you're using the buildings over the summer, where you're having activities. Can we move folks around within those spaces so we can build things? Because primarily most of this work is the summer. Although the field project, as you can see, which is the second bar, we're hoping to start it in June, right after the spring sports season ends. And finish it there just around the beginning of the new year, which is about how long it would take to get a new track, a new field, lighting, the new concession, all those grandstands, all those roadways. It is a considerable amount of work. And it will take a considerable amount of time. Then the third box there, which is the high school auditorium construction, various ante rooms, perhaps some of the rooms upstairs for the student learning center. Again, haven't figured all that out yet. But we will have many discussions moving forward about what that is. And then right after that, we move right into the cafeteria construction and the remaining balance of district-wide interior alterations. For the summer of 25, finishing all with punch list and closeout and being done with the entire project by the end of year 25, January 1 of 26.
When you say being done, that would mean the last 4 months to deal with punch list items and things that just weren't able to complete.
Which we are hoping to have done between September and December of 2024. Yeah. Everything goes well, that's the plan. All right, so then obviously there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of different organizations, it's SCD, the bid process, things happen during those things that sometimes we have to adjust for. But we think this is a pretty solid plan to start with at, from 10,000 feet. And over the next few months, now we're going to start getting into the details. Okay.
So Mary, to your point, it would seem that we're gonna have to find alternate locations for our fall sports for that year.
That's correct.
And find alternate locations for students in this building to eat lunch for
The last month of school.
6 months, well, nope, from January 25, 24, January 25.
Actually, it's January 25, should be out in 24.
Right, no, yeah, right, but it's January, no, it is January
January
25.
25.
Yeah, you have 5/1/24, you meant.
Yeah.
1/1/25 approximately.
I just.
Yeah, but, for that spring semester, kids will be eating in the gym or something.
Yeah, not to get too far ahead of it, but then maybe like the existing cafeteria maybe can be functional for a piece of that, right? And then, maybe we're talking about the major renovation space, which probably can't be all done in one summer, in 8 weeks of the summer. So there's a long way to go before that's totally fleshed out, but there is no doubt that there will be some accommodations that will need to be made along the way, because the size of the project and the interventions that we're talking about are really exciting, but they're also bigger than a summer. And a lot of them are going to take more than 8 weeks. So that'll, Kevin will start, as we develop the design in more detail, Kevin can react.
So, yeah,
We'll provide what we call logistical plans. Not just describe the work for the school district and what we need there, but also for the contractors to understand what our expectations are. For where they can put materials and how they can access the building and what times they can work and things of that nature. And we will incorporate those plans into the documents. So that the contractor bids them and is part of that. But also it allows the administration an opportunity to see the entire project and all of its parts and be able to comment about, just like you're doing here. Comment about what you guys think are the important priorities in terms of what should get done first, or what areas we could take over because parking is really bad here, but it's okay there. We'll have those discussions to try and, again, minimize the impact of the overall construction, both during the summers, but also during the school year.
one of the things I recall from prior projects is staging areas that contractors need. Either it's right here or someplace else close by in the community where they can have their materials and have. That may be less important where they're not doing excavation and they're not doing construction externally and steel and all that stuff, which we had last time. But I'm thinking certainly in the auditorium construction, 24, 25 and cafeteria construction,
And
they're gonna want space here, which is gonna take some of the parking staff away. And so that they
It
have,
could be an option.
well, yeah, I mean, they're gonna want space for them, for the materials, they're, whatever they have, and how much space they need and how much flexibility we have to provide them so they can do their work well after.
We will work to minimize that as much as
Yeah, I
possible.
understand.
But at this point, you don't anticipate having to relocate like students, classrooms outside this building, right? Like with temporary or nothing, like everyone can fit in here while you're doing it, so.
Mary, when we did the work in this building and the other buildings in 2003 to 2005, which were much more extensive, because they involved adding structures and, excavation and so on. Our contractor and architect were able to, close off this wing, close off this staircase, but move people around so that everybody stayed in the building. We talked at that time about, well, we're gonna have to rent space from Holy Name of Mary Month, their school building, so kids could go there, and we ended up not having to do that. So I think that would be okay, although it certainly sounds like there will be some disruption
Yeah,
either before the end of the year, or after, or, in September, October, as things are not finished.
yeah, there's definitely gonna be a period of time where some accommodations will need to be made. But I think with proper planning, it can, we're confident that we can find a way to make it work.
To be continued.
Put the coffee bar right in front of those kids.
Yeah, there you go.
Find it.
You might be onto something.
Any other questions? But I just want to say thank you because the
I
level
do
of,
have one request.
Don't forget to
Your slide deck was a little more extensive
yes,
than what was given to us yesterday. So I'll just ask if we can get a copy of that slide deck, after.
so yeah, I've left a copy. So
Okay, so
Thank you.
you'll be able to have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say the level of engagement from the board is, we really appreciate it. This was a great conversation tonight. And obviously you've all been thinking about it quite a bit and
This is a big night.
it's, it means a lot to us because our team has put a lot of work into it. And I can tell you, your administration, your faculty, your students all put a lot of work into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, all of you, for presenting to us and answering all our questions. It's really
That's a
exciting.
DPW
That's the
And
DPW
you've
building.
just been
in
so giving of your time, your willingness to
Yeah.
meet with our very many
That's right.
stakeholders. Multiple times.
Yes.
We appreciate it very much.
See you Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
All right. We want to take like a 2-minute recess. You guys can like clear up. We still have more meetings to do. So yeah, so if anyone needs to like run to the restroom or. Wonderful. All right, everyone. So now we will move on to our ongoing business. Recommended action. Whereas RS Abrams and Co LLP performed the annual internal risk assessment in advance of the internal audit and has prepared its report. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Croton Harmon Union Free School District hereby accepts the 2022-2023 risk assessment report. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education accepts the corrective action plan prepared and recommended focus area of study for the annual internal audit.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
Sarah, I
Yes.
just would like to just speak to that
Please.
briefly, I hope. So each year, as a part of our annual internal audit, we have a risk assessment and a focus area audit. I'll speak to each of those separately. So the risk assessment evaluates 50+ areas of the business office, different functions that we perform. And it's for the purpose of strengthening our existing processes and procedures and minimizing risk. The results of that risk assessment then become the basis to guide our decision as far as what we're going to have the next focus area audit on. So this year, upon the request of the audit committee, instead of conducting one focus area audit, we conducted 2 focus area audits. So the first one was on fund balance and reserves. It was actually prompted by the audits coming out of the Office of the State Controller right now. So the OSC is really our fiscal and it's like our fiscal, that's where we receive most of our fiscal guidance, and it's our governing body of the district. So we use them as a guide to identify priority areas that we want to pursue. So we decided to go with fund balance. Some of the observations noted in that audit were, it really focused on 2 items. One was the formalization of a long-range financial plan. And the second was providing the board more regularly with numerous reports. Appropriation status, fund balance, cash,
Trial analysis.
trial balances. So the audit committee met this past week and we reviewed the audit. They felt that they recognized the value of a long-range financial plan. And though we have many mechanisms already in place in which we are doing that with 5-year projections of our fund balance, 5-year projections of our tax levy, our state aid reserves and so forth, and of course our expenditures, that they felt that that was a valuable project. So we are looking to pursue that in this upcoming year. As far as the reports, we have begun to provide the board with those reports. However, the committee, and which is heavily weighted with financial people, thankfully, and appreciatively, from my perspective. Was that?
Go ahead.
So,
You're making me blush.
we felt that some of the reports that were recommended, these are not reports that are required reports, they are recommended reports. And based on that, we felt that not all of the reports would be valuable to the board. So we are going to in our corrective action plan, we indicated that the board would consider getting those reports on a regular basis, and we're going to really revisit that. Next, the second focus area audit was on human resources. So we selected that in anticipation of Jackie Meyer's retirement. She handles a large portion of HR, and really ensuring that the processes that we have in place are highly functional, and also just provide a roadmap for her successor. And that's exactly what it did. So there were no observations, no findings in the report. So credit to Jackie and John and his leadership in that department. But now we actually have like a roadmap for Jackie's successor to come in, read, understand how the operation operates. And so it was really very, very successul on that end. So again, so the first item of action, 3.1.
3.1.
And is the risk assessment, and 3.2 is the internal focus area audit. And the corrective action plan for that.
So on the question, thank you, Denise, you saved me a lot of spiel on the question. The only thing I will add though,
Yes.
is that the HR area was, the risk assigned to it was lowered from moderate to low, following the assessment, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah,
thank you for the team for all their wonderful work.
Fantastic. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye.
Is all in favor of 3.1?
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. We're on 3.1.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move on to 3.2. Recommended action, whereas RS Abrams and Co LLP performed the 2022-2023 internal focus area audit of human resources and fund balance as previously recommended by the district's audit committee. And whereas RS Abrams and Company LLP has prepared the internal audit focus area report, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District hereby accepts the internal audit focus area report, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education accepts the corrective action plan prepared.
So move.
All right, on the question?
Yeah, on the question, I see what we have in front of us is the report with a suggested corrective action plan. I know we received from Denise, in the report you gave us a few days ago, a draft of a letter that talks about our response. We're not voting on that response today, is that correct?
No, we're voting on the audit
And
with
the acceptance of their suggested corrective action, and then we will later on be voting on, yes, this is what we approve.
No, this is within the audit is the corrective action
They're
plan.
highlighted.
Okay, because what I'm looking
On
at,
this one, there are no
let me
corrective actions.
find.
They're where?
Human resources.
On
Yeah,
human
because there
resources,
are
there are
no-
no corrective actions.
Right, so
But-
we have the wrong one.
But if I look at the fund balance report, then what I see is
Would you like me to
there
summarize?
are corrective actions. Okay,
Yeah.
so what we're saying here is that by adopting the corrective action,
Yes.
right, such as we agree with the recommendation, have already begun to provide the board with monthly appropriation status reports for all funds.
Right.
That's done. So what I'm wondering, based on what you said before, okay, we'll consider providing monthly trial balance. So those things are the ones where
Where
we
we
need to
have,
discuss.
yeah.
Okay, I
as,
got it.
as an audit committee, yes.
Well, and then
And the
and then
board,
as a
yeah,
board,
sure.
okay, got it,
So the audit committee will make a recommendation.
got it.
But
Okay.
as of now, the board is being provided with those documents.
With the action plan, yes.
I'm almost sorry to say this, but I think that we need to change the action just slightly. Because right now it refers to a singular report when actually we are accepting two separate reports. And I think that it may need to change to read. Where is it? Perform the internal focus area audits of human resource and fund balance. It's previously recommended, and whereas they have prepared the internal audit focus area reports. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the internal focus audit area
Yeah.
reports.
Because
We
this-
need to make it plural.
No, I actually, can I make a suggestion to make it easier? Since what we are doing by the resolution is only accepting the internal report.
Where the,
and the internal audit focus, well, okay. All right, so I guess really what you're saying is there should be an S in the first whereas,
Yeah,
but Horace Abrams has prepared the focus report in internal area report, so the second whereas should also have an S. The third whereas should also have an S after report.
Saving the world one S at a time.
Yeah, say the
Yes.
world one S at a time.
yeah, just want to make it clear, since we're actually
Right.
approving two reports here, we should, it should agree.
So
So Josh makes a motion
I'm gonna
to
say,
amend,
yeah,
amend to add the S's where I said, and I
Yeah.
second the motion to add the S's where I said, and
Okay,
then we have to vote on that, and then we have to vote on, okay.
well, since we hadn't voted on the initial one, we don't have to,
recommending.
right, we don't need to amend it. We haven't actually voted on it.
No,
Change it
because
right
you
now.
have a
Because we
motion and
moved
a
it.
I
second.
have a motion and a second. We haven't voted on it yet.
Yeah, I'm saying you have to amend the motion. Right, there is a motion to adopt this language. If we want
Right.
to change the language.
Can we just clear out that
Yeah.
motion? We
Yeah.
can, we can just cancel out that motion
It's
and,
Okay, fine.
and we can do
It's
that.
one audit.
So let
It's one audit. They look at two areas.
I was
It's one
gonna say,
audit.
it is one audit.
Leave it the way it is.
one
It's
audit,
one audit.
even though it's
But
two separate
It's two
times.
areas, one audit. Let's move on.
Looking at the hour.
I'll take full responsibility for that decision
Okay, fine.
as chair.
So
of the
we're
audit.
leaving it as,
I'm exerting my authority as chair of the audit committee.
there you go. It is one audit. I mean, to be.
Okay, on the question, on the question.
Absolutely.
To summarize, this is the important point. I think if anybody's still watching. The main takeaways are additional reporting to the board. Some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. Some of them are recommended by New York State. Others, the auditor thought it was a good idea to include it. So where they say there's no legal requirement to do it, they still recommend us to do it. Fine. That's what the audit committee has to reconvene and talk about. They did talk about doing a multi-year financial plan, which we have discussed, I think, for the last year or so. This is going to be working on that as well. On the fund balance, there's the bank reconciliation out of the 200 or 250 that you guys did. There's one that missed.
Yeah, so
signatures.
we do about 250 bank reconciliations a year, and there was one instance where my signature was overlooked, so
So-
there was a comment on that as well.
And all of that's to say the findings really aren't. It's just an indication again of the professionalism and the skill of the department.
All right, any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carried. As Omar said, thank you Denise and your team and the whole audit committee for
Yes.
all of your work on this. It's very much appreciated. We will now move into new business. Recommended action that the Croton Harmon Union Free School District Board of Education approve the award of the bid for the Child Nutrition Program to Aramark Educational Services LLC, 2400 Market Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19106 for the 2023-2024 school year at the following fee rates. Breakfast is $3 per meal, lunch at $3.87 per meal, as per the bid and contract documents, and further authorize the Board of Education President to execute said contract, which will be submitted to the New York State Education Department.
so moved.
Second,
On the question? You have anything you want to give an update on?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we had a really successful bid. This was the first time we ever had two responders, and the other one was just really markedly disappointed. Like they really they came to the district, they met with our team, and they were really excited about it, as was Aramark. I would just say that 4 years ago, we had no one bidding on us. And then we had to add money to the contract to get someone to bid on us. And our rate was $1 more per meal than it is today, with the highest inflation rate going. So we are very, very happy with this outcome. We have a $60,000 guaranteed return per year. So this fund, which has been struggling for the past 4 years, is now beginning to build up a foundation. And this is, and I get choked up when I say it. This program was generated by student input. Where your colleagues and your fellow students said that we need a lunch program. The kids were hungry and had nowhere to eat lunch. So.
No, it's really, and a testament to all of the hard work that you have done in your department, that Bigley and company did in working with us to develop this, watching this lunch program start and grow has been really, really amazing to see. Exciting. All in favor? Aye.
Wait, did you?
That's it, Josh. That's,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
okay, oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move into 4.2, recommended action that the Board of Education approves the third-party controlled inspections bid award for the district-wide stormwater drainage project to EnviroScience Consultants, Inc. The bids were solicited via the Putnam Northern what's going on? Westchester BOCES Regional Safety Services COSER program. Sorry, it got centered. I was like, where's my? Okay, so the Croton Harmon High School controlled inspections fee of $99,246. Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School controlled inspections fee of $9,660 and recommended total fee of $18,906.
So move.
Second.
Okay,
On the motion,
On
this says the bids were solicited. Was there one bidder on this, or only one bidder?
No, only one bid. This was COSER. This was through PNW BOCES.
Okay, I only asked because our policy,
Right.
6700 requires, I think it's 6700 requires that if we have to notify the public of all bidders, but there's only one here, that's one.
And I will also say that this project is through our capital reserve. So this is capital reserve money that's funding this entire project.
on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves Tectonic Engineering to perform additional geotechnical services, borings B22, B23, B24, B25, and B26 for $10,150 as a part of the Geological Services RFP of the $45.5 million capital improvement project.
So move.
Second,
On the question?
This is related to Spencer and the work.
okay, so it's Spencer. Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we will now move into instructional personnel. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, hereby appoints Tammy Ann Trudell as a 1.0 FTE special education teacher, special education tenure area at the Carrie E. Tompkins Elementary School at a salary of $100,649, MA step 30, MA plus 30, step 10. Ms. Trudell is appointed to a 3-year probationary term as a special education teacher, commencing on August 30th, 2023, and probationary term ending on August 29th, 2026, in the tenure area of special education. In order to be eligible for appointment to tenure, said teacher must receive at least 3 APPR ratings of effective or highly effective pursuant to Article 3012D of the Education Law during the 3-year probationary term and may not receive an ineffective rating in the final year of probation. Ms. Trudell has professional certification in students with disabilities, grades 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Not so much on this, but at this point, other than our search for an athletic director, are there other positions that we still need to fill?
Kindergarten teacher for the 6th section, part-time AIS teacher, 0.4 at CET, and a social studies leave replacement at high school.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, now moving to 5.2, recommend an action that the Board of Education of the Croton Harmon Union Free School District accepts the resignation of DJ Goldman, Director of Health, Wellness, Physical Education and Athletics, effective June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. If I can just take a moment, if DJ is watching this, to thank DJ for his service to our district, and we wish him all the best in the future.
Here.
We will now move on to 5.3. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the appointment of William Tom as interim athletic director effective June 16th, 2023, at a rate of $700 per day.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the request for an unpaid leave of absence submitted by Thomas Naughton, teacher, Croton Harmon High School, for the 2023-2024 school year.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move into donations. Recommended action that the Board of Education gratefully accepts a donation of $250 from Agnes Zaharias as a contribution to the Christos Zaharias Scholarship at the Croton Harmon High School.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes. This donation is for a scholarship for a student who, among other things, has a good sense of humor. And I think it is really great that Ms. Zaharias wishes to recognize those who have a good sense of humor, because that's one of the things we like to grow in our district.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, we'll now move into the consent agenda. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves all items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Just one comment that I am glad to see the creation of a critical friends group at PVC.
Yes.
It's a very cool program. Yes.
It is. Anyone else? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, well, that brings us to adjournment. Recommended action that the Board of Education adjourns the meeting at 11:03 PM.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Yeah, I was gonna say, y'all wanna stay?
I like my eyes.
All in
I got the
favor?
eyes down.
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right.